call this meeting of the Arundel Planning Board to order. Today being February 28th, 2019 at 7 p.m. We're meeting in the MLD Elementary School. I'll start with a roll call.
Marty Gaines.
Jamie Lowry.
Susan Roll.
Rich Ganong.
Town Redway Planner.
We have approval of the agenda, approval of minutes. We have citizens' comment. We have a public hearing for Kennebunk Water District. We then have pending applications. We will make a ruling on the KKW Water District storage tank. Item 2 is the Arundel Farm Stand, a site plan pre-app. Item 3 is Oak Ridge Terrace, a major subdivision pre-application. We'll then go into looking at ordinance revisions. We need to set a couple of, I'm putting a complete blank. What do we call it? Public hearings.
Yeah, we have a public hearing. Discussion of setting the public hearing date.
Correct, thank you. And then we have other business. Need a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Question,
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Marty?
question. Anything about our sidewalk?
Well, that'll be discussed during each one of the.
Well, I'm just saying so that it's,
Yeah, that'll be
Noted.
in items 2 and 3 under pending applications.
just mentioning it so that it's clarified that we did do sidewalks and everything else.
And I have the notes, but I left them in the car, so I'll grab them as we get into that.
Any other comments on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Yay,
Aye.
It is unanimous.
yay.
Approval of minutes for February 14th. If you can speed read through them. I looked, I didn't see anything in there that
I didn't see anything either
looked terribly
discriminatory.
off. I did just skim through it to make sure.
One thing that I questioned is item number 3, page 5, and falls up in 6. Doesn't really have any closure on that. If we told her to work on a number of items.
Yeah, we did, we sent her a number of items to work on, but we haven't heard anything back yet.
Should we,
Number 3.
One was wrong.
Yeah, a letter, I guess it didn't send it to you. Letter,
yeah, you did send us the letter, which
we did send a
was
letter.
very
The letter
well
was
done.
sent to the applicant, the applicant actually did a pickup. So,
But we haven't had any
no.
response yet. Okay. Anything else on the minutes?
On that question of the applicant picking it up, did she get a copy of that, guide?
I gave her a copy of the ASCPA
Yeah.
checklist, but I didn't give her a copy of the guidelines, it's too big.
I realize.
She was given that summary copy the night she was here.
Correct, but I didn't know if she followed up or that's not, okay,
She's given all the materials that I had except for the big book, which is
a book.
a book. Yeah, you have to take that one up yourself. You should have one, you should have your own, because those are the guidelines for operating systems. So,
Yeah.
not federal, but state, national.
Need a motion on the minutes?
Yay.
Motion's been made, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any other discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. citizen comment. This is the time of day that we will listen to comments from the citizens that do not concern anything that's on the agenda tonight. Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring to our attention, ask us to investigate? Seeing none, we will move on. Public hearing. I'll call the public hearing to order at 7:06. This is Kennebunk-Port Water District. They're putting up a water storage tank, a major conditional use permit. Proposed construction of a 70-foot high, 1 million gallon water tank on a 13.34 acre parcel, tax map 15, lot 8A in the BI district, accessed by a 15-foot wide access road at 2104 Portland Road, tax map 15, lot 14 in the BI district. Kennebunk, Port and Wells Water District is the owner of tax map 15, lot 8, and the applicant, and James Pascal, district engineer, is the applicant's agent. The owner of the tax map 15, lot 14 is Elizabeth Buzzell.
Would you like to see a presentation?
That's up to the audience.
Okay. Okay. And how should I aim that, direct it?
I would direct it out to them.
We already know the
And-
project.
Yeah, we know the project, and we'll have questions and comments afterward. Okay.
He has a really easy.
He went down to Pennsylvania and visited the Amish country, got himself a nice,
That's nice. I like that. So, as Rich noted, there's two parcels involved. One belongs to Elizabeth Buzzell. She lives in Seattle, and she is trying to sell this lot currently. But in 1994, KKW bought a 30-foot easement across her property with the intent of putting a tank at some point in the future. They also bought this parcel here and own it outright. It abuts the Arundel Cottage complex that is enormous down here. So, bought the land in '94, then realized that we need fire flow capacity as well as our interconnect to the Biddeford-Saco or Maine Water Company's system up here, further up Route 1. We provide water both ways. We can buy it from Biddeford-Saco or we can sell it to them. This tank will give us extra capacity for that as well as fire flow. Or in the case of 20-inch diameter water main running down Route 1, if there were ever a major leak in there, this would also provide that extra volume necessary. So it's important for the system as a whole. This is a conceptual drawing of the site, and why I bring this up is specifically to address concerns of the neighbors in the Arundel cottages. We did a balloon float test to the height of the top of the tank, which I'll show you in the next picture. But the only place that was visible was right here. So these would be the sensitive folks to the visibility of this tank. And in an attempt to limit the visibility of the tank at all, we're gonna put an S-curve in this road as well as some intentional plantings after the construction is done to try to mask it as much as possible. So this will be an open area once it's done. This will be reseeded, fence around to keep it secure, but the rest of the lot will remain wooded. There's no sense in developing the rest of it. So the balloon test I mentioned, I did this with a team of folks back in August, and this is the proposed tank site, 60-foot diameter tank at the high point of land. And we first floated balloons as close as I could get to that site with an opening in the trees. I couldn't obviously float it through the branches, so had to move over 30 or 40 feet, launched it through the opening in the trees. I put it at 70 feet, and one team driving down Route 1 in Arundel couldn't see it at all. The other team driving around the development couldn't see it at all. I launched it to 100 feet, still nothing. Above that, it started to drift with the breeze. So at 100 feet, it was invisible from near the site. So I moved it to the next clearing, closer to the condos, and about 60 feet closer, almost 100 feet, sorry, 80 to 100 feet closer to this opening here. And that's the photo you see. The one place it was visible was from down here on Kenneth Roberts Way. So from Route 1, it was still invisible. From the angle you're at, looking up through the trees, you can't see it at all. And from the rest of the development, you couldn't see it. And from Kenneth Roberts Way, you would be able to see, if you could imagine, the top of the dome, right where those balloons are. So it's one of those things that I don't consider it an eyesore. It's something you have to look for to see. The closest, very closest homes right here, if we didn't do that S-curve, they may have the visibility of the gray wall of the tank, kind of in the backdrop of the trees. But we're going to minimize that as much as we can through intentional plantings and the direction of the road. So what the tank will look like, these are two examples almost absolutely identical in height, in diameter, and surroundings. As you can see, it's surrounded by forest, it has a fence perimeter, ladder up the side, a small booster station inside the fence. This is almost an exact copy of what ours will look like, to give you a sense of what the color gray, what the proportions compared to the trees, that sort of thing looks like. That's our goal. We plan to build in 2020, build the tank in 2020. We plan to build the driveway to access it up that 30-foot easement immediately. Following approval of this, we have a contractor ready to go, and trying to take advantage of sort of a slower season before the ramp up of spring and summer work. So hoping to get rolling with that driveway immediately. Once that's done, by midsummer, we will be preparing the site, and we'll get a full design of this tank. Full cost of the tank is upwards of $1 million to $1.4 million, and part of that is the design. So the detailed design will come through. CAD's team will see that for a building permit at that point. The CEO will see that as a building permit application at that point. That's the summary. I'm happy for questions.
What keeps the water from freezing?
Tanks like this do freeze somewhat. They get it, whether it's a sheet of ice on top or sheets along the sides. That happens in these tanks. So there's no intentional trying to prevent it, but you take precautions so that it doesn't break anything. You don't put, typically you don't put ladders inside the tank. You can, but you kind of put them so that they wouldn't get damaged by ice, as well as different instruments, things like that. You hang them in a manner that they won't get broken off. But the inside of the tank will have ice.
It'll never freeze solid.
No, oh, please no. That would take a severe winter
Ooh,
like we've never seen.
that's below zero.
Because it moves. So what can happen is sometimes these ice cakes, they'll rise and fall with the water. And we use pumped storage in our system, so we don't maintain an exact level all the time like Portland Water and some of Biddeford-Saco's, they maintain a level, and that's the pressure, and the system pressure is based on that. We pump out of the tank to maintain pressure. So we can draw it down quite far, rise it back up as needed. So that cake will move all over the place. And
Right.
yes.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I'll close the public
Wait,
hearing.
wait,
I just
wait.
wanted
I'm sorry.
to, I didn't really have a question as much
okay.
as, Kim White, representing Joe Paolini for the Cape Ronald Cottage Preserve. And they've worked very well with Joe for this project. And one of the more important things for the project itself is that S-curve and some of the additional plantings to really screen it, especially from those people for Abenaki and even across the way on Batson. I think there's a priority for them as well. One of the other things that isn't on the other drawing is where you have the temporary shed, if you will.
It's a small booster station.
Okay, the small booster station it would be very helpful if there were some additional plantings for screenings, especially where we are gonna have people coming in there this season.
Okay.
It is going to be visible. But really, KKWWD has been very good working with Joe and having the ability to work together, I guess, to make it as in keeping with the natural environment that we're trying to create there as well is quite helpful.
we're sensitive to that,
Yeah.
and that's why we work closely with each other.
Appreciative, so.
Anybody else with any questions or any comments? I'll try it again. Hearing none at 7:16, I'll close the public hearing. Okay, pending applications. KKWWD water storage. Gentlemen, did you have anything for the applicant?
I'm just curious where that pump station building was located, I'm not familiar with that, I don't remember, recall.
The existing or the new?
The one
New
that
one.
did-
The existing is just over the line onto our property, is highly visible from this. This is very open right now, and our pump station is right there in a straight shot on a driveway. The new one, I don't have it in this set. But if you, oh, I'm sorry.
Right there, yeah.
I certainly do have, right there, further up, closer to the tank. That way we can just keep it all close.
Question for you on that, if I may, on that picture. You said you have an existing one there now,
We
pump
do.
station?
A smaller one than there will be. The
Okay.
new one will be slightly bigger.
And what's that being used for now?
It boosts pressure to the high points of the Arundel Cottage complex.
Oh,
There's
okay.
some points up in there that are much higher elevation and need a little extra boost.
Okay, because I know they have a pumping station down in the road, I think, isn't it?
Yes, just not enough.
Okay, so this is more elevated to give it a bigger squirt.
Yes, for those higher properties. They
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
been built out yet,
Yeah,
but they will be before this tank goes online.
So would the existing one be needed anymore?
No, it'll be removed.
Okay, it'd be removed, so. Good.
Anything else, John?
now, where the existing is now, like you have the other two different pump stations, along Route one on one end, one on the other. They're kind of like in a, little houses by themselves. Is this the temporary one that, which is being used at present? Is that gonna kind of have the same, or is that just kind of out in the open?
The one we currently have is a small, it was just a shed, actually, a
Okay.
shed that we had built and hauled on site and put a couple small pumps and a control panel in it with an electrical service.
So
The new
there-
one will be a more significant.
Yeah, but this
Double
one
that.
presently, it is undercover. That's what I'm getting at, more or
It's an
less.
enclosed building.
Yeah,
It looks like a little fancy little shed.
yeah, but I mean, probably one of Joe's, golf cart sheds, I mean, type size.
It's a little, bit.
Huh?
It doesn't look quite like that, but.
Same size.
I mean,
Yes.
Same size, pretty much.
I'm just adding,
You
No.
confused everybody. with that shut up there. Any other comments, questions?
No, I've been working on this for a
Yeah.
long time, and
Yep.
I know your homework.
Findings of fact and motion for approval. Kennebunkport and Wells Water District, KKWWD water tank. Whereas on July 12, 2018, the Arundel Planning Board received a conditional use pre-application from KKWWD for construction of a 15-foot wide access road at 2104 Portland Road, tax map 15, lot 14, to access the site of a proposed future series of water supply tanks on the 13.34 acre parcel, tax map 15, lot 8A in the BI district. Whereas on August 9, 2018, the planning board conducted a public site walk of the proposed project site. Whereas on September 27, 2018, the planning board received a major conditional use application from the applicant to expand their original proposal to include the construction of a 70-foot high, 1 million gallon water tank on a 13.34 acre parcel, tax map 15, lot 8A, with construction access to continue to be from Portland Road via the proposed 15-foot road on the Buzzell property, tax map 15, lot 14. Whereas the planning board directed the applicant to provide more detailed engineering information of the tank site, the intersection of the access road with Route 1, extending into the property for a distance of 200 linear feet, a stormwater management strategy for the access road, and secure permits from the Maine Department of Transportation for the driveway opening onto Route 1. Whereas the applicant resubmitted plans addressing the planning board request, and on February 14th, 2019, the planning board determined the application to be complete. Whereas on February 28th, 2019, the planning board conducted a public hearing in conformance with Land Use Ordinance Section 10633, and whereas after due consideration, and the Arundel Planning Board has determined the following findings of fact. Findings of fact: 1, Kennebunkport and Wells Water District is the owner of tax map 15 lot 8 and the applicant, while the owner of tax map 15 lot 14 containing the easement for the 15-foot road is Elizabeth Buzzell. Number 2, the property currently is undeveloped, containing a small pump station located near Abenaki Lane in the abutting Arundel Seasonal Cottage Resort. Number 3, the applicant is proposing to install a 70-foot tall, 1 million gallon water tank on a 13.34 acre parcel, tax map 15 lot 8A, serviced by a 15-foot access road within a dedicated easement granted by Elizabeth Buzzell connecting to Route 1. Number 4, water service piping from the tank will be installed through the Arundel Seasonal Cottage Resort property, connecting to the existing mains on Route 1. While construction will utilize the 15-foot construction road on the Buzzell property, KKWWD vehicles will access the tank site via Abenaki Lane. Number 5, the applicant has prepared a visual impact assessment that indicates the tank will not be visible from Route 1 or any adjacent properties except for a buffered view from the back of Phase 3 of the Arundel Seasonal Cottages. Number 6, the applicant has received a modified highway entrance permit from Maine DOT dated 10/24/18. Number 7, construction plan sets submitted by the applicant in support of the proposed application include plan and profile of the Arundel storage tank driveway entrance and erosion control notes and details prepared by Blaze Civil Engineers and Light Environmental Design, January 14th, 2019. Proposed construction driveway from station 13+50 to 23+50, prepared by KKWWD and dated January 29th, 2019, with revisions to February 1st, 2019. Arundel storage tank plan and detail prepared by KK&W Water District dated January 23rd, 2019.
Mr. Chair, before we go to the next section, I'm wondering on finding fact number 3, it says a 1 million gallon tank. Should that be 1.2? I don't want to get you boxed in to, because
I don't know.
Yes, the permit application is 1.25.
1.25,
They have
okay.
limited panel sizes, so you can do like a 1.22 or 1.3, so it's till the final design is.
But the tank is 1.25.
That was the application.
Okay, so please note the correction to findings of fact number 3, that it is a 1.25 million gallon water tank. Nice catch, huh? Conformance with conditional use criteria. After due review and consideration, the Arundel Planning Board has determined the application to be in conformance with the criteria of section 929 of the Arundel Land Use Ordinance as follows. 9291, that the use is compatible with and similar to general categories of uses of neighboring properties. The tank is a unique structure and facility in the general neighborhood, however, it is well concealed from abutting properties and will remain innocuous to the neighborhood.
do we need to,
Motion on
motion
every one of
on
them.
each one? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded for 9291. Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah, Marty?
One question is, if I remember correctly, the way you stated, you're doing one tank. Is there somewhere in there that there may be a future second tank?
Not under this permit application.
No, not under the permit application,
In
but
20
I mean,
years.
on the site itself state that there may be in future. In
Yes.
future, not presently, there may be another, it's set up so that you could put another tank there.
Further back, so there's a high point of land that's sort of elongated shape. We are on the closer end to the cottages, away from the
Yes.
driveway, so that in 20 years or so, if Bitterford Saco wanted to build their own tank up there, or if we had a joint venture, we would still access the construction driveway and we wouldn't have boxed ourselves in. We would put another tank even further from the cottages into the woods. But that's another application.
No, I realize that, but I'm just saying for somewhere in our discussion, it was mentioned.
Any other discussion about 9291? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. 9292, that the use is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the anticipated future development of the neighborhood in that water utility facilities are considered public services essential to the growth and welfare of the community according to the 2016 comprehensive plan.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded for 9292. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. 9293, that there is adequate and safe pedestrian and vehicular access to and into the site to accommodate anticipated traffic to and from the use. The proposed use will not generate any significant trip generation except during construction. The terms of the MDOT permit strictly control safety issues involving ingress and egress of the construction materials and equipment.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded for 9293. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. 9294, that there is adequate water supply and sewage disposal available to service the use. The proposed use will have adequate water supply and no need for sewer services. Once the tank is built, they'll have more than enough water.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. 9295, that there will be no noise, dust, odor, vibration, or smoke generated by the use that will adversely affect neighboring properties in that noise, dust, and smoke. The nature of the utility does not generate any undue noise, dust, or smoke generation outside of the structure. The use will not produce any glare materials for the neighborhood or adjacent properties.
Approve.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded for 9295. Any discussion?
You have a quick question. Dust control a part of your erosion center control plan or your construction drawings?
Put a strobe light up on the top. Let low-flying aircraft know you're about to hit something you don't want to hit.
Hit all the trees first.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. 9296, that the physical characteristics of the site, including location, slope, soils, drainage, and vegetative cover, are suitable for the proposed use. The proposed use will require limited alteration of the existing site topography, except at the tank site. Runoff will be sheet dispersed into the surrounding woods. Tree cover will be retained on the perimeter of the site. Runoff from the access road will be dispersed by existing perpendicular skidder ruts, except contained by the existing stormwater system along Route 1.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded for 9296. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. 9297, that the use will not constitute a public or private nuisance. No additional nuisances will be generated by the proposed use.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded for 9297. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
9298, that all other requirements and applicable provisions of this ordinance, particularly any pertinent performance standards, are met. The applicant has met all pertinent portions of the Arundel Land Use Ordinance in the design of the proposed activities.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded for 9298. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Therefore, be it resolved that based on the above findings and conclusions, the Arundel Planning Board hereby approves the major conditional use application of Kennebunk Port and Wells Water District to construct a 70-foot-high, 1.25 million gallon water tank on a 13.34 acre parcel, tax map 15, lot 8A in the BI district, and accessed by a 15-foot wide access road at 2104 Portland Road, tax map 15, lot 14, subject to the following conditions. All erosion control devices shall be installed prior to and during the construction. So approved by the Arundel Planning Board this 28th day of February 2019.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think we also should put in a provision about the landscape planning, the evergreen trees which aren't sited, those must be installed prior to the issuance of the CO.
Okay, how would we word that?
How's that?
That sounded good. You want to repeat it for the record?
Okay, no CO will be issued until the landscape plantings indicated on the plans have been installed in accordance with plans.
Thank you.
Question,
Yes, Marty?
with a project of this and everything else, is this considered in a TIF district?
No. It's not in the TIF district. TIF district has distinct boundaries and this is not.
Property lines?
And the TIF district property line does not go beyond the
The colleges.
cottages.
I was just wondering that.
Okay.
Had we known, we would've.
Wondering if we've known.
I will,
It's been on the agenda for a while coming.
we make a motion to approve this with the 1 million gallon changes, 3 locations.
Yeah,
One
I
is
got
on this page.
And,
Okay.
and the,
And the addition of
And the
the,
addition to the
the
extra
landscape.
condition, that's it.
Second?
motion's been made and seconded for approval, subject to the corrections and revisions. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
It is unanimous. Congratulations.
Jimmy, what I need is approval block on the main sheet. Okay. Tank, we'll do that, okay?
On Mylar?
Yeah, please. Do it at the, I need 1 Mylar and I need 2 paper copies of it. If you want a Mylar, if you want paper copies, it's up to you. Okay, that's what I need for my purposes.
I wanna document that.
Second,
We
final
use the
one.
skitter ruts for stormwater control. It's an angle. That's a new angle.
The stormwater, oh, yeah,
Did
yeah.
you hear that? Where you can run the stormwater into the skitter ruts. It's done all over the place.
So should you decide to paint it, please don't make it look like those ugly oil pegs off 295.
I was just talking about those today, I don't like those triangles either. Razzle dazzle look.
Didn't razzle or
Reason
dazzle.
up a little bit, and then once construction season
Okay,
starts. we're gonna
item
be
number
all-
2, Arundel Farm Standing, site plan pre-application and proposal to construct a
Oh,
1,020
sure, go
square
ahead and take
foot
your easel.
farm retail building serviced by a 480 foot long commercial driveway with 2 parking areas containing 20 parking spaces on a 2.02 acre parcel located on Portland Road, tax map 36, lot 13 in the DB1 district. Peter Faulkner, trustee, is the owner, and Ed and Sarah LeBlanc are the applicants. Are they present?
We are.
Wonderful.
People with tans on you.
Yeah, sorry.
They just couldn't take the heat down in Florida. They had to come home for the snowstorm this weekend.
Oh, don't think it was something as simple as Florida either.
Okay, those of you that were on the sidewalk, I'm sure they would appreciate some feedback about what you saw, because I was not able to get there.
I think it's a perfect use for that. The wetland wasn't as wet as I had suspected. It seemed like there's already a road kind of, yeah, that high drain that was already there.
Yep.
The parking out back might be a little bit of an issue, because I don't know if all the customers will actually go all the way back there. So I don't know how you can mitigate that, but other than that, I think it's a good use for it.
I thought it was too.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was a really good use of the property.
For Ed and Sarah's benefit, one of the things that was discussed on the site was perhaps a row of large boulders along the edge of the filled driveway to keep people from driving out into the field that are sort of uncontrolled. You would still have a way to get through there to be able to mow and maintain that piece of field.
And I think, I know, I particularly wanted you to maintain the foliage that was separated you from the auto parts
Right.
and
the
from
small
Old Post
trees.
Road, so that it continued, it wasn't denuded and completely, mowed and flattened, because I think that's part of its charm anyway.
I didn't want to speak for my clients, but it was my guess that you didn't want to clear all the trees to have VIP
No.
completely visible to the farm stand and or their parking lot.
No, for sure.
That's correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine.
But you wanna be visible from Route 1.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, that's-
So we
we
had
might
talked,
have to do something for safety.
this was the area we were talking
Right, we
about.
talked
right?
about clearing some of
Yeah.
that, so you could see
We'd
it.
actually probably end up putting some other vegetation in there, which,
Truth is, most of the vegetation that needs to come out, they're not trees, there was just shrubbery, low shrubs.
Are you planning any signage?
yeah, it'll be a basic, you know, whatever your,
Whatever you tell us we can have that
what,
gives us
it will be on the
privacy.
top of the building. Sometimes we could put a,
On the top of the building
Well,
or alongside the building, you know,
I think we
Or
have a
at the-
picture.
the driveway as you enter or, you know?
Generally, what we've done in the past is, we have our,
I don't know if you wanna see.
yeah, we can show you.
This is kind of what this is our existing one in Waterboro, so we have, the sign is on the building itself naming
Right,
that
did you
it's a
see
farm
that?
stand.
No, I know the facility.
And then
but I
whatever
know
we
the
could have
content.
But nothing on Route 1 so that you know
Yeah,
to
you
turn
can
in
put-
that the farm
We would
stand
love
is-
to, we just don't know
We
what
can,
your policies
Yeah,
are.
you need
One
to
of the
do a sign
issues-
ordinance.
Yeah, we'll have to, whatever's,
One of the issues is you don't own the frontage on Route 1.
Right.
It's state,
right,
so we can't give you a permit to put a sign.
For
on-
sure.
on the
There's,
state
there's
property.
actually exemptions for agricultural uses in
That
state
would be-
rights
that
of
would
way,
work.
right.
so there
Those
are,
are temporary signs
Yeah.
though, that are only there seasonal.
yeah.
You see them on,
Yeah.
regularly in farm.
Yeah, it would be like
Who owns
like
that?
an ear of corn.
They're
that
in
they
the
would
state right away.
pull up
They're in
and
the
stuff.
state right away.
But
Okay.
they're not
Yeah.
permanent signs, they're not like the signs that Tad is suggesting are subject to your ordinance.
Yeah, you'd wanna look at our ordinance. under the
Yeah, we'll,
Yeah.
I mean, anything we do will be totally,
I'm
up
still
to
saying
specs.
that would be good.
Is this far enough back so that the wetlands is not in the shoreline zone or anything? That's the
We
question.
wanna have a discussion of that.
Yeah, we do.
These wetlands, I think, based on size alone, right,
Yeah.
acreage alone,
Yeah.
put them in your shoreline zone, do they not? Do the wetlands themselves become part of your shoreline zone, or do they not?
Don't know, what did you find for area?
It's certainly gonna be more than 2 acres, contiguous. If that's my litmus test here,
It's the litmus test.
because there's probably 2 acres of wetland area within the triangle of those roads. So the board does need to understand that though you've got that zoning designation on these wetlands, and typically, I think that gives you guys a 25-foot bump offset, usually. We're not making it on this site, we're asking for fills. So that is an important feature of this project, however, we're back to the sense that it's an agricultural use, it's an agricultural site. We can't, there really isn't much less you could come up with to do anything on this property. And so we're asking, you know, that kind of consideration.
When you submit the application with all of the checklist, there are a couple of items on there you could check off and, request waiving or doing something else with.
I'll coordinate with Jason on that very checklist then to make sure that we've got that.
Also, too, along the way back, what we were speaking of, I think in '94 or anything else, DOT Turner had said something about how the buildable, it was a buildable site, but there was conditions or anything else, remember? That it was for sale, but the town had something to do with it, or,
I don't know, I do know there was a DOT permit obtained for that crossing or that driveway entrance when it was installed back in '95, I believe.
yeah, '94, '95, I mean,
And that was Donnie Bryant, the excavator from Kennebunkport, working for Dr. Faulkner that put
Yeah.
that in. I was familiar with all of that, and that was part of our reference in the pre-application meeting to the DEP. We had a pre-app site meeting. The photograph that Sarah just showed you is embedded into my DEP application. Is it typical that each board member would like to get a copy of that NERPA, or is a single copy to
Single
you?
copy would go to me.
That's what we'll do
Unless
then.
you folks want it.
I didn't
I
think it
can
was
make
typical.
copies for them.
I'll just make
Just
sure
send me,
you.
yeah.
Along that line, what's the proposed, amount of wetland fill?
The proposed amount, if I recall, is 14,670, I think.
So quarters of it, roughly.
Less than a quarter, right? A fifth of an acre.
They're not gonna make you do any mitigation on it.
Correct. We are under the 15,000 square foot threshold that the DEP considers allowable for a project of this type before you have to start mitigating, compensating, or the most important is getting your wallet out and paying an in-lieu fee for every square foot that you take. So we've specifically designed a project to fall under that threshold, and some of those avoidance and minimization types of things are minimizing side slopes and so forth, narrowing the crossings to as narrow as they can be to still allow for fire and safety and access radius turns and so forth that are meeting standards.
So I have a question, a lot of your film were involved with the parking area. How did you determine how many spots would be needed for this use?
Well, I go back to the original ordinance, right?
Yeah, well,
You wanna step up?
Yep, the original ordinance, Jason Vafiatis, Land Resource Consultant. The ordinance requires, I think, 6 spaces for the square footage in the use that they have there. From their other facilities, we know that 6 spaces is not gonna cut it based on that square footage, and I think those of you that are familiar with the other location will understand that. We have to give them extra overflow parking, because we can't park on Route 1. So if people come in, and there's gotta be enough room for them to get in there, see that they can't turn around and come out. I suspect in really busy days, you will see the parking on the edge of the, 4 feet off the gravel road.
Probably parallel along the edge of this.
How wide is the road?
They're 12-foot lane travel lane.
24 feet.
4-foot
24
wide.
feet, so it's enough for
So it's
cars
enough for
coming
2
in.
cars,
going-
yeah.
Is this parking right here?
Correct, these are the 6
Okay,
spot.
so these are the
I'm not
6
showing
primary
you.
spaces and then some overflow.
Correct
Yeah.
sheet.
I got you.
Try that.
Yep, okay.
So essentially, someone will drive in, see
Yeah,
there's nothing
see
there.
there's nothing there.
And you'll see that there's, because it'll be raised up, that there's gravel parking
They've
at
had
the end.
the need for
Will it-
Employees will park down there.
Will there be a sign or something that
I mean, that's-
indicates that there's
A
parking down there?
Marty's typical.
Yeah, extra, more parking.
For
Yeah.
down
Kind
the
of
road,
nice that
they
it's
already
tucked
know.
back there
Yeah,
anyway,
it is.
because it makes
Look
it
at that.
look
And
less
it's
like
a
a
walk,
parking
but it's not that
lot.
long of a walk.
I was gonna ask how far
No,
is it,
it's
100 feet?
not,
Square footage.
not even.
Like 120 feet.
It's really not far to go back and walk out there.
Well, and yeah, on paper, it looked like it was a long walk, no one's ever gonna park right.
This is
Once
a
you
big
stare,
scale map.
Yeah,
it's not that
It's
bad.
not that far.
This is a 20 scale, exactly, and we're only looking
You
at
walk too far, you can
450 or
make that
480 feet.
Okay,
over.
100 feet's not far.
Tell your customers to bring their pull
It is
cart.
flat.
If they're bailing up with all the corn and everything else, I mean, grandma doesn't always hike that well. Not all grandmas, but
I think we
Try to drop
actually
her off,
have-
get her a head start shopping.
You can borrow golf courts from the cottage probably.
no, that might be dangerous.
Does anybody have any operational questions as far as what we do and how we operate, or even anybody else?
No, you're gonna have a cooler there or something, aren't you?
Yeah, it'll be small coolers.
Well, I'm just saying, like Harrisburg, I'm using that as an example.
Yep.
They always have, you go pick it, throw it in the cooler, and as it gets drawn out very quickly, it keeps fresh and
We actually, we have a lot of our stuff, anything that, like, we raise our own beef and such, so that'll all be in coolers and we're super regulated by the Department of Ag, how everything is, you know.
Now, you plan to be year-round operation?
Nope.
So, just for the growing season?
Just
or
the
how
growing
do you-
season, generally, we try to, we cheat like crazy in the crops, we cover them, and we get a lot of stuff earlier than a lot of people. Just by covering it and basic farming practices, but as soon as we could get the majority of 5 or 6 items, we open. If you just have cucumbers or zucchinis, it's hard to open, but as soon as we have 5 or 6 items, we'll open, and then everything comes on so fast after that. And then we've been closing Columbus Day weekend.
So do you take credit cards?
We do,
You do?
we do, yeah.
Okay, good to know.
I saw it, it was crazy. I'm going to farm stand.
No, we should.
Yeah,
We do,
we,
we do.
I think this is the first time I've ever heard that comment, right?
Yeah, Square, when Square came out.
Pay, or you
Oh,
pay
yeah.
Apple Pay?
Yeah, Apple Pay, we started that.
You gotta take
and,
the Android Pay, cause I don't do
yeah,
fruit
it's-
cones.
Yeah, it's actually,
It's
again,
been amazing for both.
my wife fought it for a
business
long
and for
time,
our
and we,
I did fight it.
In terms of operations, we really don't regulate how you run your business.
yeah, I just didn't know if there was something that you,
Curious, yeah.
yeah, just didn't, wanted
Questions.
to ask us,
So do you, I'm sorry to be so nosy, but, do you also have memberships? You know, a lot of the.
Like CSAs or stuff
Yeah.
like that, we don't do that, many years ago, we tried to look into that, it's just, for doing, with everything else we're doing, it's just another step, and we just.
It
it's too
sounds
much.
good, and we're like, yeah, we gotta do that, and then when it comes down to the time, we can't take a full breath, we're so busy,
Yeah,
so we're
I'm
like,
sure
yeah,
it's a
next
lot of
year, maybe
bookkeeping.
next year.
For,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I was just curious.
Yeah.
I just read an article about another, you know, I guess it's, what is it? They have fairs every weekend, but if you join for the year, it's like $300 or.
Yeah, some of those, they do a lot of them outside around Boston too, friends of ours, they pay $600 for a quarter share. They get so much a week, but they also have to work 8 hours, and it's
Oh.
like a big family thing, and it's
I was just
awesome for some of them.
I'm not working it.
Sorry,
If
I'm digressing.
I wanted to work in a garden, I'd grow my food.
Any other comments or anything about the sidewalk?
Nope.
Okay. You check with the town planner concerning the signs. Let us know what's gonna happen in terms of the fill, and proceed forward with the application and get it back to us.
I should say that, I think, I don't speak for myself, that I don't see any problems with this, as long as the wetlands
Mm.
issue can be dealt with, or the fill, and if you can get that green light on that, I think the rest,
The permit from the DEP.
yeah, so,
We're on a 45-day track for that permit.
okay, well,
It was submitted
I think-
last week.
I think we'd love to see.
Yeah, I totally agree.
We had a
I think it's
pre-application
a great
meeting with the
addition.
application person from the DEP who received the application. She didn't have a whole lot of issues
Do
at
they
that
have to wait
meeting,
to
so
get
we're
that
not
permit back
anticipating
from
major
DOT?
problems.
Okay.
When
So
are you gonna
you don't
have the
need-
application so that we can turn around and hold a public hearing and all, along with the processing? That's whatever.
What do you think, another month?
I mean, you wanna be able to get it going for,
For the summer and spring.
Yeah, we're trying.
Yeah, Ted and I need to coordinate a little bit on the application, so, we'll probably will be in here, I'm gonna say we'll be back in probably early April for the board, so.
Sounds like a good plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it, and,
Good luck.
sorry to make the site walk, but I hope you met my mom. So-
Yeah, she
Yeah,
was there.
absolutely.
She spoke well of you.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
good. And any other questions, feel free to call us, we're right over in Dayton.
Thank
Thank you, nice to meet you, nice to meet you again. Talk to you soon. Thanks, appreciate it.
Yep, no, I'll find you guys.
Really, it's like a little pin.
Item 3, Oak Ridge Terrace, a major subdivision pre-application. A proposal to develop a 14-lot subdivision on a 66.9 acre parcel identified as tax map 17, lot 15A, at the intersection of South Skillings Road and Limerick Road in the R2 and shoreland zones. Walter Woods is the property owner, Jason Vafiatis, thank you. I don't want to pronounce it that way, it looks like it reads differently, is the applicant of record, so I'm just gonna call him Jason. I can pronounce that.
Call words.
But it's not my fault your mama makes comments. Okay, we had a site walk, back on Saturday, and I think the big question, were you able to reach consensus with Dolly?
Yeah, so that is, I didn't even bring a plan today, cause I don't know, Walter is working on that.
Okay.
So, and that really needs to be resolved, I'm in a holding pattern at 30,000 feet until I can see, if that, we all agree that that's the way to go, it's just, we all have to get on Dolly's good side.
Tad, were you familiar with how that happened? You weren't at the site walk.
No, I couldn't make that several times, that previous commitment.
So to bring you up to speed, it was that the neighbors were there in force and preferred to look at other access options than the one we had originated on the plan. Notwithstanding access issues from that private road, It did have far fewer wetland impacts because it had us accessing in an upland position without the need for several wetland crossings. And really, if I could make an off-the-record comment anyways, I've been doing this a long time, and that was as cooperative as I'd ever seen, at least the beginning of a conversation around what could have been a potential contentious subject. So, to the extent that the neighbors do want to try to work together, that's a great thing in my estimation.
It looks like some of the neighbors are here, you know, how they feel. How do you folks feel about it?
I thought it was great as far as that aspect, great teamwork. I think Jerry's wife Dolly, I don't know, Jim, do you have any updates on Dolly and?
I haven't,
Okay.
I've contacted him a couple of times and hasn't returned my call.
But we're incredibly pleased with how Walter and Jason we've kind of worked together to keep most of the lots kind of way out back, minimizing impact to the neighbors. If we can do South Skillings Road, it'll be kind of a win-win because the neighbors will get a town paved road. Laura Lane, sorry.
Yep.
So, seems like a great,
Okay.
I do have one question and point to make to the board, but we can continue, whatever.
What's the question?
So I guess one thing I've been concerned about is this whole, cluster vision, you have to preserve open space, correct? Within the subdivision standards, there's a definition of usable open space. Is that what that definition refers to, the usable space that's left over when you do a cluster subdivision?
Yes.
Okay, so that, under that definition of usable open space, it says the land cannot be poorly drained in order to qualify as usable open space. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so my only concern is that if you look at, I don't know if Jason brought his map, especially in the area directly off of Limerick Road, there's a huge tract of woods that is open space, and we love that. However, I would say probably the vast majority of that is forested wetlands. So I'm concerned that how that qualifies as kind of usable open space by those standards. And I personally would love to see more usable, truly, per that definition, usable open space seen in the plan.
Then come on back to the meetings and.
Okay.
Because since they don't know specifically how they're going to be accessing the property at this point, it's impossible to say what we're gonna do from an open source point of view. We need to look at it
Okay.
and continue forward, and once they get their answers, we'll be able to deal with all of those questions. Does anybody have any comments on the sidewalk?
Just to what I mentioned to you, that if they do go off Laura Lane, where we access going in, it may wanna be moved farther down so that a neighbor,
Right.
a budding neighbor across the way wouldn't have, additional
They won't get
screening.
the headlights coming in.
Yeah.
And we did note that on the site.
Yeah,
Duly, and that would be taken into
We,
consideration with the new road design.
One thing that I thought of is we didn't really walk the entrance that came off of South Skillings Road, the proposed entrance there. So if in fact it doesn't work out to go forward off of Laura Lane, then we may wanna have a secondary site walk, just to look at that in
Absolutely.
non-winter.
Yeah, cause we're gonna get to see, have to see what all
Right.
of the wetlands look
Right.
like there. Cause you had a lot of wetlands on that side, using that entrance.
I would say there were 3 crossings, but none of them were insurmountable.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm sure they weren't.
I've
I'm
seen
sure
far worse.
you've done your homework on that and determined what you could do.
That was one.
But from the planning board point of view,
Of course.
just looking at the original plans, it looked like there were a number of crossings that needed to get looked at.
That was good.
Do you have any questions for us? Yes, sir.
Can I just make one more point before the board regarding the open space? So currently, within the, obviously this is preliminary because of access, within the current schematic that Jason has put together, there's lot one and lot two,
Mhm.
within that. Lot one and lot two especially, would place a house directly in an open field within that area.
Okay,
And then lot one, because of, my understanding is because of setbacks and because of how little impact you can have in that area as far as clearing vegetation, the only area for a house within lot one would be pretty much in an open field as well.
when we talk about open space in a cluster development, we're not talking about the open space on any particular lot, we're
So,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah,
the sum total of the open space.
I totally understand, Ted. So, one other point I would like to make is, the ordinance does read, unless located in areas designated as growth areas in the comprehensive plan, building location shall be restricted from open fields.
This is a growth area, R2 is a growth area.
So am I in R2 or am I in R4?
You're not
Okay, R2.
And I know it's R2 because I live across the street and I'm in R2.
I should know that. Yeah.
Okay. If there's nothing else for the applicant, we'll send you on your merry way and come up with the plans and keep in touch with us and let us know what's going on. Because again, if for whatever reason, Dolly doesn't want to budge, we're gonna have to do a sidewalk. Okay?
What we probably do in that case is we're gonna just set the preliminary application, we can schedule a sidewalk.
Yeah, yeah.
Basically, go back to square.
Okay?
Okay?
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Okay, there's nothing else.
Good job.
Next item up on the agenda, ordinance revision. Well, I think first off, we have been given the street design and construction standards ordinance, and we need to set a public hearing.
So is Walter gonna start, is Walter Thank you. Because a while ago she texted me that she will.
Is that the revision?
Revised as of February 15th.
No, I did.
This isn't for us to discuss, this is just.
Well, I mean, you could discuss it, but the fact is that we have,
All right, thanks, Jason.
we have, it was passed, we all received from the slip committee.
Michael.
Passed on Monday. The process that we go through, we received a, ordinance that's endorsed by the slip committee, what planning board to put on the agenda. What needs to happen is that according to our ordinance, this is supposed to go to the planning board. And then it will be, to schedule a public hearing on it. And then the selectmen will then schedule a special town meeting, or a town meeting. In this case, it will be a special town meeting because it's outside of the usual, the June town meeting. So
When
I
do
think
they
they're looking-
want this?
I think they're looking at doing it,
Sooner rather than later.
sooner rather than later is the way I put it. And since they're doing that, we're gonna have a bunch of different things on there, since we're gonna take advantage of that special town meeting, to get some of our house cleaning done before we go to the town meeting.
So we essentially, we have a bunch of stuff that we have worked on and looked at, and we can add that into,
On the agenda?
on the agenda for the special town meeting.
Correct.
But we have to decide what that's going to be. And we have to make that decision tonight, so that Tad can notify the newspapers tomorrow, because we have a 14-day requirement. If he doesn't get to send the notice to the newspapers tonight, he and I were talking, he's gonna go back to town hall and just press a button and email it out, so that it will fall within the 14-day period, and we can have this meeting on the 14th of, we can have the public hearing on the 14th of March.
No, we can't.
We can't?
No.
Why not?
Because I
Explain.
can't make the, I need 14 days. Publication in the paper.
Then we're looking at the 21st.
Yeah. I can't do the 14th.
Okay, then my mistake, sorry.
Yeah.
We're looking at the 21st.
Yeah, the 28th.
Public hearing, you should. 21st or the 20?
Well, we already have a meeting scheduled with the comp plan on that day.
we do both?
Yeah, we may not get to the comp plan, but the selectmen would like to get this taken care of as quickly as possible so that they can proceed forward from there.
And what the procedures say, and if I may, Mr. Chairman, in
Please do.
section 182 of your land use ordinance, it says that, if either the municipal officers or the planning board desire to propose any changes to this ordinance, or if any citizen petition is set herein is brought, then the following procedure shall be followed. If the proposal is initiated by the municipal officers, they shall formally request the planning board to hold a public hearing as set forth below, and to carry out other procedural requirements of this section. That is the letter that they made a motion to ask the planning board to schedule a public hearing in accordance with state statute and also this ordinance used for promulgation of new ordinances, or taking it to the town meeting for promulgation. So, that's essentially what they've asked us to do. So, we schedule a public hearing. You know, the planning board, of course, is more than welcome to participate in that or make any recommendations, and of course, when we do the ordinance changes, the planning board does take votes in deciding whether or not they would recommend the changes or do not recommend the changes. That's something the board can do, but we can schedule the public hearings at our earliest convenience. Excuse me.
Question, also, to the selectmen themselves, when it goes to town meeting?
Yeah.
Do they put their okay on that they approve it?
Well, since
Like last time, so we aren't blindsided or anything else,
well, the very fact that they brought it to the planning board pretty much says that they endorse it.
but it's not written, it's not said so.
Well, no, it doesn't. No, it
I'm
does not.
wondering, under a warrant,
But I think in this case, if,
And I don't,
and I could be completely wrong, but I would think that if they wanted, they would say that the selectmen recommend adoption, and if the planning board was to say, no, we don't think it's a good idea, they should put on there at the same time, the selectmen recommend it, and the planning board doesn't.
just ask you the question for,
Yeah, I understand, Marty, there's no guarantee as to what they'll do. They get to make that determination.
we always do, through the chair. We always, the planning board always does make a recommendation to the selectmen when you forward, an ordinance change or revision to them, that the planning board does or does not endorse it.
But will they put that in the warrant? Becomes the
Right, but
question.
Yes, they do. If
But
you
that's
look
one
at the
that
warrant, it
would, for lack of a better word, be sponsored by the planning board.
does. Right, but it
Not
does
one
say
that's
so in the
essentially sponsored by the select.
Right, so,
I mean, ultimately, I guess a public hearing is required, and we're the avenue to hold the public hearing.
warrant. Correct.
But, you know, it doesn't have to go through us. We can say we don't, you know,
Yeah, we can
care
say
for
we
it, we can
don't.
say we love it. We can have any opinion we want of it, and it's really not gonna matter one bit to what's on the warrant, correct?
Correct.
That's correct, we can't make any changes to it.
So will we discuss this collectively among ourselves and speak with a unified voice
We should.
as to whether or not we endorse with changes or
We will.
recommendations? Because instead of it just being kind of ad hoc,
We will have to take a vote, one way or the other, and just on the off chance, let's assume that the vote is 4 in favor and 3 opposed. Well, the planning board has said that they are in favor, so when we're asked about it, the planning board said they were in favor. It's not
By
a question
majority.
of, did I like it, it's irrelevant, the planning board is recommending adoption.
by
but we'll
majority vote.
discuss the,
Well, we'll discuss it
among
amongst ourselves, yes.
yes.
The night of the public hearing, after the public hearing is done, we will be having a discussion amongst ourselves, because at that point, we have to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, either yes or no,
That night?
that night.
Well, that's why I think maybe we should, and you have to tell me what's appropriate, we should all look at it and comment,
We
And
should
sort of-
look at it and be ready to comment.
right, and discuss it perhaps among ourselves, cause I'm not that conversant in some of the things that they're probably recommending. And I would be very interested in hearing the opinions of others that are more in tune to what's been done around here, what's accepted practice and what isn't, and whether or not you find these to be good suggestions or not. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If that is the will of the board, then tonight we could discuss it, or we have a meeting on, what, next Monday, or next Thursday, or we have a meeting on the 14th. You wanna put it on the agenda to discuss on the 14th?
I'd like-
We don't have much on the agenda for the 14th.
I'd like to do that, I'd like to be able to discuss this before having a public
yeah,
hearing.
I would,
Okay.
and
Would-
I'd like to
would-
read it first too,
Yeah.
before
I
I
have a
discuss
few
it.
questions already, and like, might be simple answers, but I don't wanna get caught off guard trying to explain something that I don't understand
Exactly.
to
Yeah,
the public.
It probably would be good for the planning board, even though the planning board was not the initiator of this, it's very important that questions may be coming at the planning board, being the holders of this hearing, that they will in fact, we should be somewhat conversant.
So can I give this to Jamie?
Yeah.
yeah.
Are there more copies of it?
Yeah, do you have more staple copies?
Oh, I have lots, all I do is make paper
For
copies.
instance, I have,
Susan,
I have a-
are you gonna be in town?
I hope so.
I know, no, because I know you were getting
I'm
ready,
just waiting for
I
telephone
realize
calls.
that,
Oh,
but what is your,
She's
surprised
not
you're
due
here
till the
tonight.
26th,
um,
March.
oh, okay, I
So I
thought,
should be here.
I was trying to listen and
No, I
play
have,
the,
I have,
the
a- I
date
have a
game
little
and
bit of
rest-
time.
okay,
Hey,
that's what I'm just trying to,
Okay, so we'll put this on the agenda for discussion on the 14th.
right.
yeah.
That'll give everybody 2 weeks to read through it, make notes, and we'll discuss it.
I will be here on the 14th, I will not be here on the 21st.
Okay.
okay. If you have any concerns,
Yeah, well, all right, we'll bring it up on the 14th.
When's Roger due back?
Probably not until March.
This
Mark?
March.
Yeah, he's here today. He's here flying in.
Today's his last day.
No, I think he usually comes back around mid-March, the
Oh,
Ides of
mid-March,
March, or
yeah.
the end of March, somewhere.
Well, I didn't know, I mean, is he before St. Patrick's Day or after?
You know, it varies.
Yeah.
I mean-
He doesn't have a set schedule.
Depends on the St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, depends on which part.
Well, no, I was just trying to think,
depends on how much, how fun the party was.
no, I'm just,
But right now, it looks as if the 21st is going to be the day that we can hold the public hearings.
right,
And to Tom's question, at least I think it was yours, we're gonna hold this at the same time that we have the comp plan committee meeting. We're gonna do this before the comp plan, and
They'll
unless,
just wait for us.
they have to.
they
It works for me.
they don't have to,
And I
but
can
then
leave.
they won't know what it's all about when it goes to,
It's good, be good for them to hear.
I think so. I think it would be very good for them to hear. And not just this, there are a number of other things.
What else?
I believe,
There's a whole
I
bunch.
we
can
have,
think of
we have
three.
warrant articles for the proposed town meeting.
I can remember 2 or 3 others. I mean,
There's
one,
there's the museum
yeah,
that we need.
Yeah, let me hand out the warrant, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
okay. Thank you.
Did I not hand this out? Yeah, you
No.
did. Alright, this is, so you get so much paper that you probably.
That's right,
These are the
printing.
proposed warrants. Some of these
I
should
would
look
like
familiar
us
because you've
To
already
be able
passed
to make
these.
digital, so that we don't
And
have to
remember
do
that we
it
get,
on
what?
I would
Oh,
like to.
no, you didn't get any of this. No.
Thank you.
These are the proposed warrants that we either can pile on at this time of this meeting to clean up some stuff that we've cleaned up the last year, if you recall. We've been kinda waiting for this road stuff to be done, so that we could do the warrants and, for the other things we've done, including, if you run down the list, and let's look at it, first of all, if we do in fact, I mean, if this ordinance were to pass, on amendments to the street design and construction ordinance, that means immediately that we would also have to immediately amend the, private way ordinance.
Which is
the
what
private way section of our land use ordinance, because they would be in conflict, very strict, very, very distinct conflict.
And that's what Article 2 does.
So Article 2 is, it basically does the correction, that would be caused by the amendments that are done in the, street design and construction ordinance. Bless you. And so all of Article 2 deals with those changes that have to be made. Article 3, deals with, essentially, the museum. The museum people are really, Motorland is really, changing their business plan, and they really wanna open this museum. They're hot to open this museum, their attorney is, they were under the impression that we were gonna pass this immediately, did not understand that we, although the planning board had approved this and approved the language, and even the warrant, the fact that we were waiting for the selectmen to hold, to tell us when they wanted to hold this special town meeting. We thought we were gonna do it for the year, into the year, or at least beginning of the year, so it's been, they're very anxious, and they've, actually, I met with their attorney today to discuss, what they propose to do.
Is that Sandra Gay?
That is in the
So didn't they postpone their application or take it off the agenda while they sorted some things out? Because there was a period of time where we didn't hear from them. They were,
Yeah, but she
It
came
seems
back.
like they have an application of theirs in front of us every year, and they've been a little slow this year.
yeah, I mean, it
But
seems
they're,
like
they're
they've
ready,
been,
they're ready to come off the marks out of the blocks as soon as this passes.
I'm sure
Actually,
they wanna be ready to go for this summer.
And they want to, and they actually, we talked about doing a pre-app with the planning board before this passes, explaining to her that the planning board cannot consider it seriously until this ordinance, if this ordinance passes, and there's no guarantee. As you well know, there's no guarantee at any town meeting whether or not a proposed ordinance change or addition will in fact pass muster with the townspeople, they're the legislative body. So,
So I'm sorry to be so, dumb,
No,
but so what exactly do they need out of the ordinance in order for us to bless?
Permission to have a museum in that zone, it's
In that
specifically
zone.
prohibited.
well, it's not specific,
Well,
it's
it's
not
not-
included, it's not included, so it's an omitted use.
It's an omitted use. So they need to get the zone, the ordinance to change the zone to allow museums.
But otherwise, their setbacks, their parking spaces, their buildings,
The parking spaces is not, that's why they'll be coming back, just because they're, we said museums are permitted use, so the change of use there of that from a storage facility to a museum is not the issue for the planning board. The issue will be they have to add more parking.
right, I remember we discussed that last
Now, I
time.
know Susan's unfamiliar with this, but is there anybody else on the board who's really surprised about the fact that they want a museum? Haven't we been asking that question for the past 2 years?
Well, but then they.
No, it's been
they
longer
came
than
to
that.
us, I mean, asking for that.
with that back door.
Well, they haven't been hiding it.
No, they
It just
haven't.
wasn't allowed, so
They
they were
just-
finding other ways
Well,
around it.
they called it a showroom.
Yeah, But
And we
it's-
just kept saying to them,
they,
come on, guys.
I don't know,
The
sometimes
biggest-
showroom, museum, they don't seem like
They aren't the same.
analogous
No, they aren't,
terms,
they
so.
aren't the same.
The only, my biggest concern is the thought of going that way. If, besides Harvey homeowner, they have a car, but if they have a, tour coming
Bus,
from
yes.
Portland, tour bus,
Yeah.
that they have not along Route 1, that's,
yeah.
That's the decision that.
But
I
they'll
mean,
have
I'm
to
just-
come to
Right,
us,
that's-
it'll be a change in use, so
Right.
they'll have to
Well,
come
the
to us.
use,
So-
if there's a change of use, what difference does it make, because it's a permitted use.
But
It's-
for parking and our
Parking,
conditions,
that's a
it-
different thing.
yeah.
And Marty's prescient when he says buses, because that's what they wanna park on the property is buses.
Well, there's a lot of adjacent property
They
next to
bought the
them.
adjacent.
They
property.
did.
oh, they did buy it all.
Yeah. So the fence will probably, I'm leaking things that haven't been codified at this point on the plan.
But it's on the game plan.
The game plan is
It
to
would've
take
been
down
better
that
off buying the
famous
whole
fence. And
Property,
Kind of
first
what the
place.
planning board
They were better
recommended
off
in the
telling
very
us this
beginning
way
was
back when,
buy the
so
whole
we could-
property.
Really?
Yeah.
Taking care of it then.
Yeah.
They don't own it they don't own the property, it isn't Motorland LLC that owns the property, one of the partners owns the property next door.
Well, that,
And so does that complicate issues if it's
Well,
not the
you can
museum
do
that
off-site
owns?
parking, you can do off-site parking as long as it's within 500 feet of the museum.
So he has to, the owner of the property, does he have to grant an easement?
Yes,
To
grant
the
easement or
museum?
permit or
Oh,
some sort
getting
of
better.
permit. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's what you guys do. And they're working on that right now, but I mean, we're gonna be concerned about turnaround, access, there's shoreline zoning issues there, they know it. And, so it's really gonna be an issue of, making it work, making it function.
And do you think they have enough room?
I
To
won't
make it
speculate
work?
until I see a plan.
But didn't at one time, correct me if I'm wrong, way back when we started this whole thing, did they have something about more property, and then they, when they had the first one, and they went back to the smaller piece of property, and that's why they had to put up the fence?
The issue there basically was that, this was the Griffin property, they had put, North Country Auto, as you call, in there.
Right,
They decided that wasn't the best of all, they weren't getting their business plan
right.
fulfilled by the way it was going, so they basically put it up for sale. The, Motherland people could not afford the entire parcel and did not feel that it had the resources or the need for the whole parcel, so strangely enough, they subdivided it and made it into a flag lot, back portion to a flag lot. And that's why they had to put up a fence, because they would have to tear up some of that parking, which went over that line, in order to meet the buffering requirements of the, VI district.
God, that seems silly not to have taken that whole big, you know.
I mean,
Well, they paid
Because
more
all-
for it later.
Yeah.
Well, also it boxes them in.
It boxed them in pretty badly. Now, that
So-
fence was that fence was actually the planning board concession, the planning board didn't have to give them a fence. They could have said, no, you put in the 15 feet of plantings that's required by the ordinance, but they let them put up the fence, knowing that probably at some point, rather than tearing up that parking lot, you use that parking lot, and then they buy it eventually, and that's exactly what happened, so.
Sounds
Taking
like
up
they
fence
act
is cheaper
first and
than-
think later, is that what they do?
Well,
A little bit?
I will not speculate on that.
Well,
Question on,
I,
on
well, we'll turn off
Article
the
2.
camera, right, right.
Yes,
Article two is combining, I know it's all regarding, private ways, but it's throwing the equestrian driveways in there.
Well, that's because the equestrian driveways were referring to the private way as defined in table 513.2.1. Table 513.2.1 will not exist. You know, assuming this passes town meeting, table 513 won't be there. So we're gonna tell people to refer to something that doesn't exist.
So that's all that, okay,
That's why.
all I'm afraid of is that anytime this
Mention
has always been a contentious issue, equestrian stables and.
Yep.
Well, you'll find the standards in private ways to be considerably less than it was in the new,
Yeah,
street
the
design that
proposal.
it is now.
Yeah.
Okay, question also, are you done, Tom?
Well, as long as
I butted.
those who will be affected are aware of this, so they're not speaking up against it and shooting, all you need is two people speak up and it could get shot down.
I don't know how to identify who to make this known
Well, there could be one start. Cause she is affected, I don't know.
to. She wouldn't be affected. She's already got it private way.
She already, okay, well,
Okay,
no,
but
it won't
my
affect me
question-
either way, I don't think.
Okay.
that's the change there. What about Article 3? We're gonna have museums on there?
Might as well.
And, well, that's the question, will we put it in there?
Are they gonna sell their cars too?
Yeah, in fact, they just got they wanna start selling Mokes there.
Selling what?
Mokes,
Mo,
Mokes.
what's a
Is that
mo?
like a acronym of some sort, or?
No, that's an actual name. Actually, it
Yeah,
means
I saw-
donkey. The Australians consider it to be a horse of lesser quality.
So
But
we're gonna
Moke is a
bring them
type
back.
of car. It's actually a gasoline car, it's sort of like
Like a regular car?
no, it's a miniature car.
Oh, okay.
Oh, like a
It's-
Yugo,
Yeah,
only not quite as classy.
well, it doesn't go that fast either.
Is it like a
Three
Cooper?
wheels or four?
It's four wheels, and it's not a Messerschmitt.
Is it like a Cooper?
No, it's smaller than. a
Smaller?
Cooper. It's like a toy car. It goes 35 miles an hour. It can be licensed
Like
to
a
drive
smart
over the
car? Oh,
highways.
not the
Have you
smart
seen the
car.
Prius C?
It would be like.
The
a
Prius
smart car.
Prime, rather. The Prius Prime is smaller than this table.
So what does that do to their, qualification as a museum if they're selling, are they a car dealership?
They
Or are
already
they
are.
a museum?
Everything, they're everything.
They're everything.
It's gonna be multi,
There'll be well,
Yeah.
we have, I mean, if you look at what's a strip mall, it's all sorts of different businesses, all sorts of different things. we're doing the same thing. Auto dealership to us is very simple kind of thing. You sell motor vehicles, they're selling motor vehicles, they sell vintage ones, and I think they're finding that some of the really old stuff is just not moving, so they're gonna look, I've been told, that they're looking at finding the new wave of new vehicles.
Those are gonna be.
Well, yeah, well,
Are they the driverless ones too?
no, they're
It's
not
gas
driverless.
crunch.
No, it's a
Okay.
gas, think of it as a gas motorized, cool looking golf cart.
I was just
Those
curious if
35
that
mile- I'm
stops
going
it
on-
from being a
going on
museum,
hookup
if they're
trucks.
a car dealer.
I am
All right.
trying to visualize.
Next question to ask along that line. When are they coming back to put up a new building?
They're not gonna, that's not the,
That'll wait.
that's not,
Yeah,
yeah.
it may
That'll
not
be
fit
the
with
next
their
step.
image.
I'm
but
just-
Do it again, Marty.
That's,
Okay, so
it's
we're
up
gonna,
to
we're
them.
gonna
So-
put, we're
Yes.
gonna put museums on, right?
yeah, it should be.
Okay.
My question
Article
about this
4.
road, which I was trying to get at, okay,
Okay,
is this gonna affect,
Like Jeep.
okay,
run in
the
backyard.
water company on the road or anything else?
I'm sorry.
no,
Of course not.
I mean, under road designs, private ways,
no,
everything else, I'm just,
no, it won't,
Okay.
because it's only gonna affect new
Well, it's like
projects.
an FAO Shores kids
Yeah,
park.
right.
yeah, they have, it's,
You know what I'm
It's,
talking
it's,
about?
it's only gonna affect new, things that take effect after this meeting. We've already approved KKW, they're putting in the road according to the standards that currently exist.
that's why I was,
And they are back lot, and they're actually building a road that's larger than required for a back lot.
you got different,
Yeah, it-
back
that's what
lot,
they
turn, you aren't gonna have that kind of equipment going.
Well, you know, as we talked about this before, I mean, that's a logging road. If you really look at a logging road, that's what that thing is gonna be. It's 15 feet wide, between a lot of gravel.
They're
you go up to
construction road.
50 It's a construction road,
Yeah.
just like a logging road, it'll be trained like a logging road. That's why we're using the ruts, which actually are very beneficial to us, because those ruts go laterally across the perpendicular to, well, they actually parallel with the contours. So they're gonna run the water out along the contours. Otherwise, we would have had them doing all sorts of other stuff.
Well, they're like
Gonna happen.
existing little ditch turnouts.
They're worse,
They're better.
the guys who went and logged that a long time ago went in mud season. So those, I fell into one of those things when was going through the brackens and it covered it, and I just went right into it. And, it was 3 feet deep. So you had, skidders that were doing 3-foot ruts, and, so when I say a rut, it's not a little rut, it's deep. It actually has capacity, water capacity, it's like,
Well,
it's the only reason I let Jamie get away with that.
Well,
was
hey,
drainage.
you figure the ruts are wider than this table.
Yeah, they actually are.
I mean, you look at the dimension of a tire,
Yeah.
and if it's 3 feet, you got some,
Well,
you
it's
got a
3 feet
miniature
deep,
pond.
Marty, it wasn't
No.
necessarily 3 feet wide, it's 3 feet deep.
I corrected, that's why I'm saying you have some capacity of water.
Got some capacity.
So I hate to free associate and go back to or digress, but do we have a definition of a museum
Yes,
that's going to be included?
yeah, it's already there.
Second page.
Second
Oh,
page
sorry
says
about that.
Looks good.
An institution
No,
or
it's
establishment
Over James
operated
Wall.
principally for the purpose of preserving and
Stream of
exhibiting
consciousness.
structures and or objects of historical, cultural, scientific, or artistic interest, which may contain associated facilities for meetings, education, restoration, and demonstration purposes. Sale of goods and services related to the museum's principal purpose is permitted as a subordinate and incidental use of the property.
And is that where the cars come in? So if they wanna sell the
Okay.
cars, they
That
can do
would
that?
be-
No, it would be something like
Well-
if you were to have, and then remember, museums gotta apply to other museums.
Right, that's why I'm asking. It's like,
You can have, what it means basically, you can sell T-shirts, you can have ice cream, you can have food, anything that you would
Postcards.
associate with a
Books,
museum.
postcards.
You have your museum store, you have your
Yeah, right.
museum refreshments, and, that's part of the attraction of a museum, is that they make back by more money on the concessions.
They charge them.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, so, do they have the potential to do so? Sure, they're putting that $200,000 courtyard. I would think they're gonna put, I mentioned it to them, that when we get to the food cart thing, why wouldn't you? It's actually set up to do that, I'm quite sure they thought about doing this, because it's set up to be, to have food in that courtyard.
That would be cool.
As long as they have enough parking. Parking's always
That's
the
right.
issue out
Yeah,
there.
cause the trauma
Parking
museum,
and-
getting
and
in and out
septic.
during the summer is.
Well, the septic is something
The
that,
buses.
that Jim's gonna have to look at a little differently, because they may have to make some more modifications to that, although they have a pretty big septic system right now. What they've got approved in the last round, it's a much bigger septic system, but, fire chief also is gonna look at it, and the architect is looking at what other requirements are going to be done. I'll tell you honestly, that storage building is not a storage building. As you saw, it has climate control, very high-end climate control, it's well insulated. It is a climate control building that's used easily to accommodate the public. The only thing they might have to do is additional fire, exits.
They're gonna have to put that door in now.
They might, I don't know, it all depends what the fire marshal says. And don't forget, Jerry's gonna be
Put
on
in,
the job.
took out, put back in.
That's right.
You just
And
had
when
the
that
stormwater
happens-
for it.
Then when that happens, then we're gonna be looking at how you exit people out of there, cause
Yeah.
as you recall, that's backed up and
Yeah.
there's no exit back there, so.
But also too, the landing,
That's
Yeah, drop
exactly
right
right.
They're gonna have
So,
to look at
I
the
mean,
whole.
because that was originally supposed to be
So
flush.
that's the museum, which you guys have already voted on
Yeah.
to approve and send on.
Yeah.
The parking table, Jamie, that looks familiar, right? That's what, now you proposed that change in that parking table.
I did.
Yep, you did.
Then
It
we
was
have
originally 400, you could.
Like you did.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
blame you.
It sounds like he already was.
I just,
Article 4.
I can't remember what I did yesterday, more or less 6 months ago, when we looked at it.
Article 4 is the front lot line. Remember, one of Roger's employees has a problem with a piece of land that he bought because he really has no way to access it because somebody put a private road in. And was it too close to his building?
no, the problem is a private way, a legal private way is a street, and we consider it a street, and it has setbacks like any street. Okay, so if somebody puts a private way with the easement right up the side of your lot now has frontage on it.
Right.
And, so consequently, if you were planning to build in the back on the sideline and you had to be 25 feet away, and now suddenly somebody put a road, you have to be 100 feet away in the R4 district, you've just lost all that land. And so this is basically to take it out so that if it isn't a self-inflicted wound that you did, you
Well,
won't
and if
have
you
two
don't- yeah,
frontages,
you don't have any.
two frontages.
Right.
That's what it says.
You don't have
Right, that
access
was
to
the-
that.
the-
Yeah, if you
side
don't
of the
have
road.
access, you're
Right.
not required
Required
to.
to use
use the
that.
front exit, yeah, that's not your front
And the
yard.
owner didn't create that problem.
Exactly,
That's right.
it's not
That's
self-inflicted,
fair,
yeah.
yeah.
That happened because somebody, for whatever reason.
Happens a lot.
It happens a
Put it
lot,
right through there.
Yeah.
it does, it
Well,
happens.
naturally, people wanna put that road as far away on the edge as they can.
Right.
So this isn't particular to that employee of the town, this is a universal problem for all. And this situation brought it to our attention, apparently it's happened in the past, and we never did anything, well, now we've taken care of that. So
I was
that's not a burden for
I was
property
wondering
owners.
why the burden wouldn't be put on the new developer where they're creating that problem. Shouldn't they be required to set back that road from the property line?
How am I gonna do that? I can't do that.
Yeah.
And then you'd have like a no man's land.
Yeah, it would be,
Yeah,
but.
But you have
in
the
the end,
illegal lot.
It's kinda,
Exactly, right.
You have
Kind
the
of
illegal lot, that doesn't
non-conforming.
meet dimensions.
yeah.
And I have enough of those around here too. That's, by the way, remember we were going down to the line on Raptor Falls. That was one of the big problems that we had, yeah, there were problems with the light, but the real problem there is that they had, that Fritz's Way wound through there and they put the lot line down the side of it. And suddenly, with that easement, or excuse me, that right of way, cause it's conveyed, it's in fee now, that created all these little lots, illegal lots, and I said, you can't do this, guy.
Did they purchase the land, by the way, for Raptor Falls?
I wouldn't know.
Is that
I
clo-
confirmed.
well,
I know they were.
It still has a for sale sign on it, it doesn't say pending or,
Well, you
I
know,
just-
realtors, they'll keep,
I was just curious if they
these signs
ever,
up, yeah, they just,
move
it's just
forward.
self-promotion, that's all they.
It is a little bit, but
Yeah.
generally you wanna say pending or sold, cause that's advertising for yourself.
Well, I know this, I know
I'd
the
hate to
rest-
see it get sold out from underneath them after.
Oh, I don't think
If they're
they
under
will.
contract.
Yeah.
What it is there's an SBA loan involved, and you know, that usually is a very slow process, the SBA loan process, and that's what they're grappling with right now, the business plan, they worked on that, but they have some extra expenses, they had to put more lighting in than they expected.
Which place is this with?
Oh, Raptor Falls, mini golf.
Oh, okay.
So, but we won't know whether it was conveyed
We'll just call it dinosaur.
until, because it usually takes anywhere between 3 and 5 months for us to get the real estate transfer paper from York County Registry of Deeds. So we're all set, when we put in Article 4 on there then?
Yeah.
Article 5, strap in.
Articles 5 and 6 both deal with contractor yards, and personally, I think we should wait and do those in June, instead of doing that now.
More public?
More public,
I'm just-
we'll be at the meeting. And the other issue is that the decision had been made, to send this to the town meeting, to adopt it so that you could have until, August 1st of 2020. But it was originally done under the assumption that we would do this at some point in June, and that would give them a year to come back, as opposed to giving them 15 months. Not that I think it makes a whole lot of difference, I don't think anybody's coming anyway. How's that for being an optimist?
Well, I think we might have some.
Well, wasn't the guy who was interested in getting this extended, I imagine he would come.
Yeah, West, was it?
He doesn't qualify.
Well, you'd have to make that determination.
We'd have to make that determination. I think the fact that DEP made a determination on that.
It's something.
But that's a whole other issue, I guess.
Yeah, it's not.
I just think that we should wait and do those in June. Otherwise, we're gonna be in that meeting for a long time, in a public hearing. Because there's gonna be a lot of stuff.
I was gonna say, how quickly did he go, because this is a lot for
There's a lot for a.
people's
special
process.
And there's one other that we really should address, other than the, other than those three for, other than 5, 6, and 7, which all deal, are 4, 5, and 6,
For contractor yards.
all deal with contractor yards. The Article 7 deals with food trucks.
It's back.
The Board of Selectmen have an ordinance on there for food trucks,
It's a licensing law.
a licensing ordinance that they're going to be in charge of. It conflicts in a couple of small areas with the food trucks that we had worked on.
How
Which we
so?
haven't passed yet, which we haven't.
Right.
Which we have not
codified.
passed, yes. There is that issue.
It got dropped. And what I've got here is, the red represents changes proposed since the last time we went over this, which was a year ago. Piece that up here.
They have also changed the hours of operation.
Yes, significantly.
Yes.
And going over this quickly, number one, the selectmen aren't going to license mobile ice cream trucks or mobile lunch trucks, so let's just get it out of there. Those things are on the road and they stop maybe at job sites, but generally they're on the road. So it's not something we wanna regulate, we don't regulate things that are on the road. Selectmen have an option of doing that if they want to, many towns have vendor licenses for ice cream trucks and canteen trucks. Ours are not gonna do it, so let's just get it out of there. Okay, that's number one. Number two, also because we're getting rid of it, in the definition of a mobile food truck has been, we're axing the reference to the mobile ice cream and the mobile lunch truck. Remember, the last time we did this, we made the decision we were going with food trucks, and then we went back and said, oh, we'll consider trailers too. So, we've got trailers in here. So we have mobile food trucks and mobile trailers. You remember that we had the definition of each one of these. And the tow trailers in excess of 3,000 pounds, GVW, and 20 feet in length. That's probably what the Texas meat places down in Trappers Village, if any of you have frequented it. We're online, Location, no different than it was before, I think we all agreed that it was gonna be a location, in business districts only, to start. DB one, DB two, ARBI, GW, and the Townhouse Corner District. And considering it a administrative conditional use permit that's done by the staff review committee, so it's a fast process. There's two exemptions in here that, the selectmen are putting in. Well, actually, there's one exemption, and then we're putting in another one, because it makes kind of sense, if you think about it. The first, and you'll see them in red, they're in number 2, A and B. First one is a private lot in any district at a one-time event for no more than 15 hours in duration. What the heck is that?
A special event.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
They have it down here at the Museum Home Days.
it's very common.
Yeah, they have it, or you have a wedding.
Yeah, no, I.
There are people now who are saying, we're gonna just basically have food trucks coming instead of doing the sit down. I'm sure
Bob's
Keith's
Barbecue.
doing it. Yeah.
My son's doing.
Yep, your son's doing it, and Keith's daughter did it. And he said, wow, it's so much easier for us.
Yeah.
And it's becoming more and more popular as these food trucks become more and more, frankly speaking, high-end. They're putting out high-end product.
It's not Rapid Race anymore.
It's not your
No,
hot
no,
dog.
some of the food
It's
trucks
not your
are.
Red Stripe hot
You
dog.
had to know Rapid Race.
Oh, no, that's fine, I'll pass, but,
So there's that. The second one is what we're seeing also, a lot of, and that is on the premises of an existing food service or any business establishment that provides adequate parking for the customers and the food truck trailer park patrons. Such operations conform with all the other performance standards in this ordinance. What that is, and it's already happening, Jim had to do enforcement action with Bentley, because Bentley's had a food truck on their site, even though Bentley serves food. Well,
How many food trucks?
that's up to you guys.
No, I'm just saying,
That's up to
he's
you.
had more than,
Oh, yeah, Bentley's has had more than one at a time out there.
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, by,
And the question is he has it on his property, he's competing with his kitchen, well, he probably wants to close his kitchen at 9 o'clock, and this is probably after 9 o'clock when the food truck. So his patrons are still getting served, he doesn't have to pay the staff, and doesn't have to deal with the cleanup and the mess, and,
Yeah, but their parking is always a problem. Their parking, there's never enough parking there.
Right, Bentley's?
Yeah.
That's
anyway,
a capacity issue, but, because they're only supposed to have motorcycles.
so, and they can leave, I didn't see it, but it could be there, so what do they do with the food trucks when they're not in operation?
They could leave,
They can leave them there?
So, that could be,
I thought it was 2 seconds.
the
That's
way
the
I'm,
question.
the
Is
way
that
I'm
a
reading
problem?
this is Marty could have food trucks at his establishment.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
if you wanted
If
to,
he's got the parking.
as long as he's got the parking capacity, yeah.
So the lobster truck, for instance, that's no longer gonna be able to park where the Cumberland Farms is going, and
They can go to
they
the
leave
lobster
that
company.
truck there.
they had one time at Lobster Company, they ran it out of there, then they were told they couldn't. Yeah,
You talking about, right?
so maybe we-
Yeah,
Yeah.
right where
Right
Ross
there at the
Road,
traffic light.
Yeah,
right.
they wanna, they plan to come here when they lose their lease on that property.
Cause a lot of food trucks like to cluster together.
Well, that's.
like
Because
Condon's,
Well, it's like, you know,
that's
It's a
right.
food court.
Right.
yeah, it's like a food court, it's like
Yeah,
and I'll
front
car
court.
dealerships all lined up in, you
And
know,
we'll
a
get into
row.
that in a minute, cause there is a provision in here for that.
Okay, one other question along that way. Trucks, this, that, and everything else, even for special events, trailers, do they have anything in there for beverage?
Yes, it says non-alcoholic
Non-alcoholic
beverages.
beverage.
I didn't read that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So
But there is also, what happens if they want a food truck or whatever else like, for alcoholic beverages?
Go on.
Hey,
No, I'm just saying,
They, that,
But
they
that's,
want that.
that's
You need a
pretty,
liquor
that's pretty much,
license.
yeah.
Don't you
Yeah.
guys
Thi-
have like an Allen's
This is,
coffee for
the
every
selectmen
food
have said the
truck?
same thing.
not that I've seen.
I'm just asking,
Done.
I'm just asking a question.
I knew.
No, they're not gonna have, not in Arundel.
Fireball inhaler.
Yeah,
Oh, that's where all those
So,
issues
so
are.
the way, you're back to two B,
Yeah,
this means there is no, oversight really. So they can be, anybody,
You
any
can-
business on Route 1 can just have a food truck.
Sure. Yep.
See, which I don't know if I have a problem with that, but it's a lot different
well,
than
originally
what
you
we're
said
talking
you couldn't
about.
have more than one, and you could only have one per property.
But that could be every store, every gas station, every,
I'll tell you one that won't be having it. Rundle House of Pizza, they won't be having it,
why not?
because they don't like it.
But if everybody else is doing it, they might just put one out front and
Sorry?
hire someone to sit out there and they'll
Well,
be inside.
he didn't, it's not that he's against food trucks, he doesn't want them on his property. He doesn't want the competition from selling pizza and sandwiches.
Unless he owned it.
I mean, you could get Weir's and Arundel Ford to come together and have food trucks just to attract
Yeah,
people to come and shop
See,
and
this is where
dine.
this is where you get into a problem there, because now you're gonna require parking for that. Because, you know, if it's a food truck that's, in which there's an association, you're servicing a customer that's already there. Like, Home Depot has a sausage cart.
Yeah.
Okay, nobody's going to Home Depot to eat, but when they're there, they'll have a sausage, and then they might say, let's go to Home Depot, we'll grab some lunch while we're there. They have adequate parking to be able to take that customer.
and
If it's a destination, that's when we're gonna run into a problem.
well, I don't think, in the case of Weir's or Arundel Ford, I don't think we're gonna run into a problem. Because if you're driving on their property, going to the food court and eating and leaving, they're gonna shut the food court down. They don't want you coming there, they want you to come by a car.
They probably don't want you
They-
being
they
in the
don't
way.
want
to be in the way,
Okay.
right.
Yeah,
Well, they may not want you
Yeah.
dissuaded from looking at it.
yeah.
Right.
Or
better
slop
yet,
it over.
Putting,
Yes.
yeah, sauce all over you.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
even
I'm gonna take
looking
that nice
serves a
Mustang
purpose.
for a ride.
So, even,
But
looking.
maybe this will work, but also notice in the dimensional standards down below, we haven't changed setback of a mobile food truck trailer from a permanent food service establishment on an adjacent property.
Well, that doesn't make sense to me. If any other business can have a food truck, why are we limited them?
Permanent food,
That could be a Rundle Market.
that's right.
So why would we not let them have one if we're gonna let
I
them?
didn't say that you wouldn't, I didn't say.
They can have one, it has to be 100 feet
It
away.
has to be 100 feet
100
away.
feet away from where?
So where's the next one? Well, that's what Mikey likes.
Well, you look at Condon's,
So it doesn't include their own,
No, it's not their own, it's the next guy.
The next
If there's a
people.
permanent food,
okay.
It's,
and here's what would happen.
Setting one up next to a restaurant,
Okay.
an established sit-down restaurant.
Who doesn't want it.
Right.
Or doesn't want the competition, because we did, if you recall, when we did invite everybody, you know, I went around and invited every single establishment here to come, and we had what, 3? We had 3 people come, and one of them, which was a was dead set against it, one wasn't sure, and then one in a food court in her property.
Yep, Seafood Center, one of the food court,
They wanted a food court.
and they may get one under this,
They could get one out of this.
which would be an improvement.
Does
well,
anybody
no,
inspect these food trucks?
the fact is,
Yeah, yeah. they
it
have
would be
one.
like Condon's then,
Yeah.
because Condon's, they have what, 7 or 8 trucks down there,
Yeah,
Good thing.
Yeah,
and
there's even a beer tent.
Yeah, food trucks are
We're taking
huge.
baby steps here.
okay.
I'm just saying.
I understand.
But the question for you guys, if you like the
Not
way
well.
this stuff looks, is do we put this on this special town meeting? Because the selectmen already have their ordinance set to go to the town meeting, and we don't have anything in the land use ordinance that would allow it to happen.
So we
Yeah, I
have
would
a
say, yeah.
conflict between our vending license, which the selectmen will do, and actually they lifted all the performance standards,
it
they
all.
lifted all from us. So, they did, except for the multiples.
So you
And
go
for the
hand in
parking.
hand.
Right, it goes
They
hand in
didn't
hand with
parking
them,
lot.
I'd say,
Yeah.
Oh,
No
yeah,
brainer
it
to
should be
put it
done
on.
together, yeah.
It should be done together. Well, let's go over a couple other things. Now, one of the things they said they wanted, they said there might be problems passing it if it goes to the planning board, and that's why we said staff review. It would be staff review, because we can flip something in a week. You guys can't, unless you have an accelerated process.
something like this, I don't see a huge issue with, I mean, you're using existing infrastructure.
Exactly. You know, the only thing that we're gonna be checking from our standpoint is the parking.
Yep.
Do you have adequate parking? If you're standalone, if you're over on, let's say, on one of these vacant lots, and you're gonna put a couple of these up, you're gonna have to show me your parking. I need to see your parking, make sure that it's valid. And make sure that you have, if you have seating, you know, the selectmen limited seating to 16, we had 20 originally. So they went down to 16, so it's a smaller, you know, picnic bench than what they have
16
with the
per
lobster.
food truck?
16 per food truck.
Because often the lobster truck has a lot more than 16.
Yeah, well, we had 20 originally.
And they talk about no parking.
That's two big picnic tables.
Yeah, it's two big picnic tables, right. If you can get 8 people, 4 people on the side, that's just 2 picnic tables. Smaller ones, it's 3.
Yeah.
So, but the selectmen are the one who put that in there. We had 8, we had 20, they put in 16, and so we just.
Something we can
dumped it down.
change later, and who's gonna enforce it?
That's the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have the
It might be-
infrastructure there, and, you know,
By the time you hear about it, you go next time, there's only 3 people there.
That's right.
Yeah. And if it is an issue, we can.
We'll
look
know
at it.
about it, we'll find out about the issue. That's
Yeah.
Either that or you bring your own folding chair with you.
Sit
Well,
in
you
your
can
car.
You eat in your car.
all. Yeah, in the car.
I can't tell you how many times I sat and ate in my car eating a lobster roll or something.
There's no limitation on, if you, the limitation is gonna be how many parking spaces can I get to get my maximum number of customers in there? So you bet they're not gonna try to limit their business by having adequate parking.
Most of the time, people don't linger at these places.
No, you're picking up food and you're
Right.
taking it somewhere, you
Yeah.
might eat there, the tourists will eat there
Yep.
usually, if you have something that's touristy, you know? And,
Yeah.
for them to do, hey, I ate a lobster roll. I've eaten the one in Freeport many times outside, just because it's,
There.
yeah, I don't feel like eating in my car, it's too hot.
Recreating right along Route 1.
So, yeah.
Like, Reds, or what's that, is that the one?
That's
with
Kenny
the
Bunk
scat-
though,
was
right?
that-
Oh,
That
yeah.
corner,
Yeah.
Kenny Bunk?
You see a lot
No,
of
no, no,
Eighty
no, where the
people,
lobster
it's
is
like
on
you
West
go across the
Road.
street and
Yeah.
get cheaper and quicker.
It's a shame they're gonna tear down that building too.
Oh, yeah.
I think they
don't
should
know
make
about
that part of Cumberland Farms. preserve it.
It's,
Oh, that
I
old
know,
cinder,
I know.
that old cinder block building?
Yeah.
it's a historic structure though.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's
It has a lot of local
sad.
significance for a lot of people.
Isn't
who
it where
aren't
Benedict
like it.
Arnold camped out the day he started out to Quebec?
I have no idea.
You talking about your
Your relative?
service
No.
with Arnold? Is that what you were talking?
No.
Oh, okay.
Is that true that you're really related to Benedict Arnold? I heard that
I
rumor.
can't tell you, if I did, I'd have to betray you to the British.
Oh,
I
really?
know I got bad news for you, because my relative was arrested, your relative.
It wasn't mine.
Okay, good, then that's the end of that.
Mine came over and stepped foot on that rock down in Massachusetts.
Oh, really, Revere, huh?
Yeah, that one. There wasn't a rock there, they got thrown off the boat and forced to swim in. They don't want no
Oh, it was
French
that
man.
group. Okay.
Okay, so the other thing
Off-street
was.
parking.
Off-street
Let
parking.
me just run through these real quick, the changes, okay, seating is down to 16 from 20. 1 parking space per 3 customer seats with a minimum of 3 parking spaces for every food truck. We should have a minimum, 3 parking spaces, you figure, nobody's sitting, they just come, you're gonna have 2 people at the window and, you know, maybe somebody who just got into their car. 3
I
is
would
pretty
say
reasonable.
three or,
And you could go high, well, it's 3 minimum, and then there's 1 per 4, 1 space per 3 seats, which is no different than what we have for
yeah,
restaurants.
so that makes sense.
Here's the only thing, food trucks and trailers that serve as an ancillary use to an existing business with adequate on-site parking are exempt from providing additional parking space.
That makes sense too.
If you aren't a destination, if you aren't Reds, then you don't need extra parking space. And you know, frankly, Rich and I talked about that, there is a sort of self-policing thing here, if you're stealing parking spaces from the main
Your tenant.
business, they're not gonna be happy
Or
with you.
Right.
Tenant is stealing spaces from
It's,
you.
yeah, yeah, you're not gonna like that, there'll be some changes. I was gonna make a joke, but that's inappropriate.
Okay.
And then the final one is the permit. Again, saying you need a permit required, it's, Conditional use, it says food courts consisting of, you guys tell me if this is too
Four
much.
or more.
4 or more come to the planning board. You wanna make it 5, I'm fine, but if that's a real, now we're talking about traffic.
4 or more, these would be independent operators.
Right.
Cause you could conceivably get a business owner that has 4 food trucks that each sell something different,
Yeah,
and they,
I don't know if it has
No,
to
I
be
think, right,
independent.
I think
I think
four
it should be 4
individual trucks.
4
Yeah,
trucks,
4 trucks.
period.
4
Yeah.
trucks
Yep.
and trailers.
Yeah,
They
well,
could,
that makes
they could
sense.
all be the same owner, they could all be
Yeah.
different
Doesn't
owners, I think
matter, yeah.
4 of them, and you have to come to the
Yeah,
planning board.
you're starting to look at something that's a little more serious.
Yeah.
I'm gonna worry about all that combined parking, you gotta worry now, start thinking about how turning movements are working from this facility.
It's reasonable.
So, yeah,
And
4
also-
trucks would require 12 spaces.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's not a small amount.
no,
Well, but
It's
it also
also-
could be a destination, it could be a draw
I think
during
it
the
would be a
summer.
great destination.
I think it would be
Talked about it, yeah.
super.
I mean, I would love to even have so we don't have any town land, but it'd be great to have a town, you wanna create a town center, one of the things you do is you create, okay, and many communities do this, they create a municipal food truck park, in which they come and they either park there, and usually you aren't gonna park there, you're gonna move around to various places. But you park there and you pay rent to the town or the city,
Right,
and,
and that's what they do in LA.
yeah.
It's all outside the Los Angeles County Museum of Art.
there you go.
They have the 3 blocks worth of all these gourmet food trucks.
They do it in Washington DC, they use this thing called the mall down there.
well, they've got them just right up in Brunswick, right
Yeah.
along the main
Yeah.
drag in Brunswick. It's
And
all-
also Back Bay in Portland.
Yeah,
On
they're very
Baxter Boulevard
popular.
they do it. So, what the heck? I mean,
Not
our
around
objective is to
Brunswick,
generate,
Yeah.
traffic or generate
Washington,
business
DC.
in Arundel. It costs an awful lot to do a brick and mortar
What do you
restaurant.
gentlemen think
I'd
about
say
this?
move it forward.
Move it
Yeah,
forward?
move it forward.
Yeah.
What do you wanna do about the contract the arts? Do you wanna move them forward or wait until June?
I think we should wait till June.
Yeah, well, it seems like a lot for the public hearing. If you get a few of these that have some discussion, it can eat up a lot of time.
So, last question, what happened with the letters and whatever for Stilfen Lane, Stilfen Way, and the attorney?
The attorney is going to have to file without those letters, because I don't have copies. And he doesn't either.
Well,
No, you would
but
think,
is that our problem, if he doesn't have copies of the letter, if we actually read them into the minutes and it's clear that
Well,
we
we
were
don't
given
have
them?
them, they're not in the minutes, I mean.
Well, I mean, they
They
were,
want-
it was
I
read,
can
it's
transcribe them,
it's
I
in the
guess,
recording.
Yeah, I know, and that's the one good thing, if we need to transcribe, I wouldn't want you to have to do that unless,
Admittedly, rather not.
I'm just saying, isn't it his
He can.
responsibility to have the paperwork?
he can, well, what
I'm
he
sure
can
he
do
was
is,
given the paperwork as well.
no, he wasn't.
Well, I'm,
You know, he just wanted to make sure that we were given it, and that his client had due process.
Due process as a result, so you could use that against us if you want.
But he had it.
given the fact that his client presented a letter, allegedly presented a letter to us from David Trottier,
So he
saying,
did, I saw it.
then he should have a copy, it was part of his record that he gave us.
Yes, but his client didn't use that one either.
Well,
Yeah,
It
that's
should have been,
I-
no,
I
see,
question
there were
that.
three, no, there were three. And I have the other two, I don't know where Trottier's letter is, it's not in our file. Now,
Well,
our file's been through a lot of hands, a lot of people have gone through it, and,
Well,
this is
isn't the
problem.
burden be on them to
well,
have
that's what I'm
possession
saying.
of it? It'd be nice if we had it, I
Well, I
agree.
want it, because I saw it in the record, it's not on the record now, and he said that, this isn't in here, and
Did they,
can you
did
get it? And I
they,
called
neighbor get a
Trotter,
copy of it?
It's
Well,
not, it's
why
not in the
can't
bottom of the
Trottier
blue-
give you a copy of the
He doesn't
letter?
have
I
one yet.
called him, he doesn't have it.
How about,
He
how about-
deleted it.
Did we all
How about
get a
Bruce or
paper
the other
copy of
attorney?
it? I don't
Yeah.
recall.
Yes, you did.
You did?
It was a submission.
But I
I
was-
remember
I
those
wasn't at the
letters
meeting,
being read into
so I
the
remember
record,
it.
that's all.
So I have
So-
to
so
transfer.
right.
Yeah,
I don't
so
have
if
it.
it's on
But you have
the
the transcript
recording,
to try.
yeah, sure.
the onus
The
is on
public
him
hearing?
to have.
No, 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 no.
That was
The
read.
night of the letter was
Trotter
read.
read it?
Yes.
Well, then
Which
you want
is
to
September.
see the copy of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why when I,
The public
when I
hearing.
emailed you,
Well,
I'm like,
that's sort of
all
what
of
I
these
said
are
And
read.
supposedly,
That's why I
And
was,
he
when I
supposed-
saw them.
well,
You know, he said,
whoa,
well,
whoa,
now
whoa.
he has to do his due
That's why I
diligence. I
was
said, well,
debating.
don't you
Hey.
think about that stuff
I
ahead of
wanted
time?
to see what happens.
Okay.
The thing
We didn't
is-
have a written copy, but we do have an audible copy.
Yes.
The thing is, it wasn't done in August, it was in September.
It was September 13th.
Right.
Okay, I'll go back.
Trotter was? No,
I looked
Trotter
through
was-
everything.
No,
I
it was
looked at it
September the
today.
13th, because I went and read, came back and looked
Yeah.
over the minutes.
And I looked
Okay.
at the video from the 13th, and that's.
Okay,
where it
well,
comes
see,
from.
I received it before I went on
Yeah, I
vacation,
gave
that's what
Tad-
one must.
Oh, that's
Everything
probably
happened,
part,
all of
but
this
they
stuff.
handed in a version as well at that time.
Well, no, it was in
Or
your packets.
Something, right, so,
So, okay.
I put that in prior packet someplace, and I have no idea where it is.
and I have a lot, any of the records from the
Pile of
lawyers, it was only,
Things I haven't gone through yet.
he's
I
the only
didn't-
one
I
who
didn't
gave
look
me
in
things.
mine.
that
Can you-
Joan did not give me.
I think we're gonna have to
Public
up the number of packets, we're gonna have to get a packet.
Yeah, 'cause
I've got
I
it.
keep, I
That's
usually
fine.
keep all the paperwork, and I
Yeah.
put it in a plastic
If you want it.
But
file
if it,
thing.
if it
I have a
was,
stack like this.
It's been
of
too
more
cold
minutes
for me to go to my
minutes
office.
in my notes
then it
and-
wouldn't have been in the envelope.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's true.
But-
hey, it's been too cold for me to go to my office.
There you go. So the last item that we have on here, this is a discussion permitting 10-acre lot subdivisions. And this is something Donna DeKinderen would like us to take a look at.
Not for,
Not for the special meeting, no.
No.
So she wants us to look at the idea of saying, you know, yeah, we can do,
So why aren't 10-acre lot subdivisions allowed now?
They require clusters.
So,
she doesn't want them to be clustered, if she wants to
cluster
be-
in every subdivision has to be clustered.
Right, and she doesn't
Every
want them to be
subdivision
clustered.
will be four
She wants to be able to make a 10-acre lot.
Right.
and have one house on it,
See,
That's
so
not a
when you have
subdivision.
your miniature farmer,
I guess I have, as a younger person, I have kind of a.
She's out of
I
order, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, as the young person, I struggle with that, because everybody in all the committees that, you know, that I've sat through here, it's people my parents-ish age making those choices. Ish.
Yeah, pretty much.
And, you know, I look at this and like, how do I afford that? Or how do I have the luxury of maybe subdividing for my kid?
You
In that
don't,
sort of
and this will not be a popular item, I will tell you.
No, I know, I just said, my thought was, I mean, what if there was the one-time option to subdivide that 10-acre lot? That's a big lot.
Yep.
You know, I mean, maybe even put a limit, can't be within 5 years of purchase. You know, so that's
No.
not the intent.
The intent is to
know?
preserve land.
Oh, and I understand that, and I
The
understand in
farming
Arundel, you
character.
want to retain that rural character,
But
but
the
I think
issue
it
with,
limits
the issue with
30, 40 years from now.
having 10-acre lots, if you subdivide them for family purposes, that's what, every 5 years?
Then you're exempt.
Every 5 years, and you're exempt,
Yeah.
there's nothing that anybody can do about it.
Right, but if it's in this lot, and one of the times that Kat talked about it, it was non-subdividable, is when
It
you had
still
talked
is, I
about
would
it.
still propose that, it's not subdivided.
Yeah,
This is one of the strategies, one of the problems is, and you know, this is a good thing to review. One of the issues is this town has, when you do a comprehensive plan, and this community is very, very attuned to the fact that they want to preserve open space and that rural feel that is Arundel.
and I get that.
Which is great, but you see, that disappears extremely quickly, it's disappearing right now
Mhm.
in family divisions, in splits. We've had more splits in family divisions than we've had subdivisions. I would say most of
Yeah.
the lots we've created in the last 10 years have been from splits. Whether it be family splits, exempt splits, or just a 5-year split, which is an exempt split. This is resulting, and will always result, and I've seen this happen in all my experience in many places around this country, you will not retain your rural character with this kind of structure. It will all get chewed up. I've seen it in upstate New York, in heavy dairy country. Auburn's been fighting it, and they're probably one of the most progressive, I would say, developed farmland communities in the state of Maine.
Mhm.
They've got some of the best agricultural or rural character preservation tactics of any of the developing communities in Maine. They're a city, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, but so you see.
But the problem is, if you don't put those kinds of restrictions on there, you're doing this it's just a waste of time, because it's a futile effort. You will lose that area. I'm not big on 10-acre lots, cause I don't think they're big enough. Seriously, they aren't.
But if they're not,
But that's what we agreed to, the 10.
who's we?
Well, that's what the comp plan committee agreed to.
Or, wait a minute, this comp plan,
They talked about large lots and.
I know, but the
basically-
comp plan makes their own agenda.
Yeah, it
Yes,
seems
they
like
do.
it's just a couple of people that is
I
the
guess-
comp plan.
Well,
Yeah.
And so, where's this coming from? There's a couple of landowners who might have a need to do this, or prefer to do this.
I think,
It's
yeah.
a-
Well, I don't think those landowners are the ones who are proposing this. This came from other people. This was a response. And the 10-acre came because I told them, if you wanna be successful in actually preserving that land in the west, do 10-acre zoning. And they said, oh, we can't do that. I said, okay, well, then make it incentive-based. Make your land preservation incentive-based. You either give extra lots, you give, or you get, if they're gonna
That's what
do,
a cluster does, is an incentive, you
even
can
more
put more
incentive.
density.
You can't get more density. In our cluster, you can't get more density. You
Maybe we
only-
should,
Well,
maybe add
That's
some
one of the
that.
things we're gonna be discussing in the R4 district, if we ever get to it, or the RC district, is talking about giving actual density bonuses. If you do certain things of preservation. What Michael was talking about here, not just preserving wetlands or preserving just basically leftover land, residual land, but preserving pristine land, or very valuable land, like the farmland the open farmland that's in front.
Yeah.
Give extra
Those
density
are the
for
first
doing it.
ones to plop a house on.
That's the one
Yeah.
everybody wants to
Yeah.
plop a house on. But as soon as you do that, even the people who plop the house on, they go, wow, look what's happening. The elbow room's gone. I don't feel it, it's not the same as it used to be around here. So what we're looking at doing here, and one of the things that could make Arundel a little different than a lot of other communities and how they're developing, is if we do these density bonuses. They're done all over the country, it's just, they're not done that much in Maine. And, I think I've mentioned to you, we've got a book called, basically, Design, what is it called, Design with Rural Life. Rural Design is what it's called, and it was done by a planner who used to work in this area. It's a national book, it's been on the APA list for years. And I think I've sent you guys some of that, the excerpts, because the author, gave me permission, and he knows Arundel. He actually, I think, was behind our current cluster zone, our mandatory cluster. I think he was, because he was a circuit rider planner. And, he basically gave me permission to copy anything from the book and hand it out to you guys if you want. Now, it's a beautiful book, it's great, it's $100, so I'm sure you're not all gonna go out and read this or buy it.
I have a selectman buy it first,
Well, yeah, I'm sure.
since they won't buy us a tablet.
So what's the minimum lot, this is just for my own
What
edification,
acre?
like in the R4,
Oh,
3 acres.
3 acres?
You know, I will tell you honestly, large lot zoning, unless it's really large lot zoning, doesn't work to preserve rural character. Design.
Oh,
preserves
well,
rural
we've
character.
already talked about
We've
that, I
talked
mean,
about that,
yeah,
and that is true.
I'm with you 100%.
And
We
that's, I
have
think
to,
if you balance the
take
large
control
lot
of
with
the
other
design.
opportunities, I
Well,
think
that's
you're gonna
right.
get more of a balanced community.
You can, and that's one of the challenges we're gonna have here, working on this in the R4 especially. Or maybe even the R3, if we preserve the R3, the comp plan committee wants to see that gone. The R3 was never developed the way it was supposed to be. It was supposed to be that bridge between the R2, it's a 2 acre zone, R2 and the R4, being that, we were supposed to do design standards that made that more of a rural feel, or you hiding in buildings more, and the planning board, both your predecessors and us haven't done anything with it. That's why the comp plan committee said it's no different than the R2, let's get rid of it. Well, I think we might have an opportunity to
Well-
make that a design district, basically.
okay, just the other thing is, the comp plan has a lot of different things in their agendas.
Yeah.
Okay, but the fact is, they haven't pushed it either. I mean, so they can't throw it at the planning board, because we didn't do, but they haven't promoted it either.
No, they haven't, and, you know, they're waiting, the planning board's job is to implement the ideas that are in the town plan committee. And if they disagree with it, to get the town to basically say, no, we don't wanna do that, we'll change the comp plan. And there's always that long-standing argument, is the comp plan sacrosanct and you have to do what the comp plan says, or is it a guideline and, you know, the planning board has the flexibility to follow the basic concept, but to do things
But it
differently?
doesn't work that way.
Well, no, yeah.
Well, it all depends on
It all
who's in
depends on the
the
comp
running
plan.
this-
Who's on the comp plan and who's on the planning board, you know, what your philosophy is. But, I think that what's happened in the past is the comp plan dictated exactly what the space and bulk requirements, the setbacks, all that stuff. This comp plan, when I was working with it, I said, we can't do that, we gotta work on concepts. What are we trying to really achieve? What is the goal? You give that to the planning board to hammer out the specifics. And so they did that, and so now we've got some very loose instructions from them. And now it's gonna be up to us to hammer out do the hard, heavy lifting now, to work out exactly how we can achieve this goal.
And that's what
And
we're
this is
trying
a
to
challenge,
do.
this could be fun.
That's what we're trying to do right now with the comp plan. We're
Could be.
meeting on the R1,
Dreaming.
but we've got a couple of people who keep wanting to bring in stuff that's related to other areas and not just concentrate on the R1.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating.
It is frustrating.
The only problem is that with the R1 is the first residential district that we've attacked. And the issue with that is it's got a couple of landmines in it that have been a perennial problem in this town that we have to resolve if we're to move forward. And, you know, as we know, everybody here's been attending, we know that they're the animal husbandry and home occupations. I think we're kind of there with home occupations, but animal husbandry, we're still a ways off. But there's some strong differences in philosophy on that. And also,
Well, and ultimately, what we have as R1 isn't widespread developed as 1 acre lots. It's a ton of larger lots within the R1. If it was a typical suburban R1 type of environment here, I think it would be a lot easier to answer those questions, especially from the agricultural side of things.
yeah,
The issue is we're trying to blend an R1 concept into many lots that don't fit an R1 scheme. They're much larger than 1 acre lots.
yes, they are. The one thing I will say to that though, Jamie, the one thing we don't have for map resources, which I'm gonna try to take care of this spring, is, we don't have good soil, we don't have a GIS soil map. And a lot of the stuff that was done here was not done on resource-based planning.
Right.
It was based on theoretical planning. If we overlay some of those larger lots, you know, I've got a map, you probably remember that, Lado, map of different lots. And we don't have huge parcels like they do in R3 or R4. But we do have some good size, you said.
Right.
If you overlay those on that soils map, you'll see that, holy mackerel, most of it's junk. You know, a lot of it is poorly drained soils, very poorly drained soils, it's all along the river, and it's just not buildable. Or
Not really
It's
useful.
very difficult, it would be catastrophic to put 1 acre zoning back there. You just couldn't get the soils for the
Right.
septic. So when they take the unsuitable land out, we don't have a lot left in the R1.
Oh, it's just like how they turn around, comprehensive plan gave us a big bonus for the business district. We got the BI. You can't build on it because it's lock and, swamp and ledge.
And that, and well, you know, to be fair on it, we don't have a lot of land that isn't swamp and ledge around here. I understand that, Marty. The good thing is that what we do is we do have a project that technically is non-residential, that is resort-based, it's got the resources to be able to do something with those-
Correct.
with those deficits.
Yeah.
But
Make it
you're
a-
right, we're not, I'm not getting a lineup of people, you know, even with our quarrying provisions, I'm not getting a lineup of anybody who wants to go in there because of the costs. And on top of that, we don't have sewer.
Right, there's not much we can do about that.
We
Oh,
slug away.
hey,
We
how many
slug
took us
away.
25?
Yeah, slug away,
Hey,
eventually, someone like the Rental Cottages will come in and make
Well,
it work, but,
that's a once in a lifetime.
yeah.
Yeah,
You know, frankly.
but you see, Tom,
We're probably not gonna be getting a Walmart on Route 1, but.
No.
I don't
we
think
didn't
we
want it.
want one.
No.
but you see, Tom, it took us only 25, 30 years to get water pressure on Route 1.
Yeah.
Arundel Cottages made it happen.
Yeah.
It's interesting that, I don't know if you know where Mills Road is in Kennebunkport,
Yeah.
but that was a large piece of property, but a lot of it was ledge and wet, and they divided, I don't know how many lots they created, very expensive in terms of what they're doing. And their postage stamp size,
Yep.
and they're not selling. I mean, almost all of them are still for sale. I thought that was really interesting. I mean, I looked at that before it was subdivided, just to see what it was, and I was curious, you know, if it could be just one large parcel, but it was so much ledge and unsuitable land, there was really nothing you could do with it. So, I think they're gonna have a tough time, so we have to be mindful of what we, you know, encourage people to do on land that isn't suitable to really be built on.
Exactly, and there are shifting preferences in housing now. We have a different generation that's coming up here, you know, these little tykes over here.
I got
The
asked.
millennials are coming.
I got asked today why we don't have apartment buildings. Why don't we have rental property in this town? Because people don't look, I'm amazed. I would look at a single-family house and think I could rent that.
Yeah.
These people are looking at it and
We
going,
can't
no,
afford it,
we want an apartment building.
we can't afford it.
Yeah, because they can't afford it. That's like, really?
Well, you're talking basically a mortgage to rent a house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
the way the rental market.
You can't, so you can't afford the mortgage, so they're not gonna give it to you, you can't afford to rent the house, so you have to find an apartment.
Well, that's where some of the development in a business district that is multi-purpose, multi-use,
Exactly.
like what I described to you, what they did in
We gotta
LA.
get somebody to come in and do
Right.
that.
And we have that structure in our DB one.
And we have to
funds,
draw more businesses
need
in
to-
to make it,
Yeah.
you know, attractive for people who, that they wanna live there, they can walk to goods and services and that kind of stuff. That's, to me, it seems like it's a long way off for
But that,
Route 1.
that's a discussion
It
that
is.
we're gonna be having on 10-acre lots. Cause there's somebody on the comp plan that wants us to do that.
Right, well, and Don is very opinionated.
No.
As we all are, I guess,
Yes.
but,
And I
Well,
guess,
it's like, I mean, Tom, I think it was Tom that pointed it out last week. Donna and I have a philosophical difference. You know, she thinks it should be this way and I disagree with her. I don't think it should be. Which is why I said for both of us, the rest of you guys have to figure this out, cause we're not gonna agree.
well, and she operates, I believe, in my opinion, from what I've been able to gather, that people ultimately will do the right thing. And I think the
I
opposite
think
is
she's
true.
deluded.
I do, well, I think she's naive, if that's what she really believes,
We have to see
because
the results of that.
people
Yeah.
good
don't do
deeds.
generally don't do the right thing, but
Okay.
people.
anyway.
want
I have a
to do the
question.
right thing.
Yes,
Out of this, what about Mr. Raymond? Black Dog Road,
Wait, you want a status report?
yeah.
Are we on other business? Are we done?
yeah, I think we're done with all of the land use stuff,
Mhm.
unless you guys have more stuff you wanna be done on it.
I will advertise this for the 21st, so I gotta go back and do that before I leave. Mr. Raymond is, I've not heard back from Mr. Raymond. Last, we were supposed to do, he was discussing with an adjacent property owner to buy land, cause he needed additional land, he didn't have enough land to be able to do that second lot, and let's put it this way, developable land. He couldn't make his net residential density because the land is poorly drained. So he had to get some more land. Plus on top of that, the road issue, he's still got issues with that road, because as you know, that originally had been approved by the planning board with a cul-de-sac. And then they had made an amendment to make it basically a T back there, or actually there was nothing. And the problem is that, I'm not sure that was ever recorded in Alfred, so the cul-de-sac stays. Which is to his benefit, because he would have to be able to provide a hammerhead with a 200-foot frontage for this new lot. The cul-de-sac, you only need 65 feet on a cul-de-sac. So the cul-de-sac actually has, benefits for him, that he doesn't have to build as much of a road. I had a discussion with him also about the new ordinance, proposals that private ways, even in a subdivision, only have to be 16 feet wide for travel surface. And he said, first is, what is it now? I said, 18 feet. He said, feet, besides that's 2 lanes, I can get 2 cars past each other, and 16, you can't. That was his decision, not mine. But I haven't heard from him since then.
Only reason I asked, cause he came down to see me, and I told him, says, it's out of my hands. I said, go back and see you and whatever, that's why I'm asking.
Yes, yeah, I think he's been, he's hoping that there's some way that we can find a waiver for the subdivision standards, and we can't. I mean, you either have the land or you don't, and if you don't have enough good land to do it, and you don't have frontage.
That's why I'm trying to get out. He said something too about a board of selectmen, and they had made it an agreement or something other, or made it a concept, or I don't know.
I know nothing of that. The manager's talked to me about it, and I believe he's going to be he's had a meeting with him, and I believe he's going to be, sending him a letter, explaining
That's why I'm
the
asking
town's position.
my whole questions tonight.
Yeah, we've been working with Dwight quite a while, and as I said, we were supposed to meet, he and the butter who's gonna sell land, and then he canceled the meeting, saying that the butter was sick and that he couldn't proceed, and he'll get back in touch with us, but I haven't heard from him since.
I think the butter is Morris.
I don't know, I think it's, might be.
It is.
And he told me that, so Jim and I have been waiting, we're gonna have a combined meeting with him and the butter, and we haven't heard back from him, so that's what that is. For the rest of you, in case you didn't see the email, his song has been sued, by Mr. Sweeney.
Say that again, now?
He's the guy who owns the land on
The
Liberty
outlet.
Acres where
Liberty
he
Acres, yeah.
sold them the easement.
Yeah,
And now it's,
Yeah, well, we're also named in the suit too. So, there's 2 parties, his song on KBS, is being sued, and we are too. And, essentially, we did exactly what council told us to do. The allegations against us are that we permitted this to happen, and that the town has indicated, that it will accept, the extended Lazard Road as a town road, and, that hasn't happened, so there is no injury. There's no record of us accepting it, it hasn't even been built.
right,
So, we'll be taking a backseat on this, we're not gonna really respond to it. Yeah, there's no reason for us to spend money on it.
How long ago was that approved?
10 years ago.
Oh,
So I
it's-
think that, yeah, I think
So
the
statute of limitations is
It was-
probably
it was before
expired.
30
I got on
days
board.
is your appeal period, 30 days, it was even 30 days from our change.
Took a while for it to sink in.
Tom, we were
No,
here.
I think, yeah,
We
I know,
were
I
here.
remember being here.
You guys were
I
here.
think
You
what
and
happened
Roger.
is it was so far in the future, he didn't feel the impact. Now
Mhm.
Yep.
it's into its way.
It's
His
his way,
problem.
the stakes are in his front lawn.
Yeah.
He
so-
looked at it and went, I got my money for this easement, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now
at
it's
the
time to
time.
put the easement in. Oops.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you got any money, I don't think you got much money for that, I thought that was, he was being friendly to a neighbor, and the neighbor flipped.
Oh, it's even worse.
Yeah. For a big development
But
like
what
that.
what they're claiming is that the easement is encumbered, basically, because it only refers to 3 lots, it does not refer to any more. But those 3 lots have been actually absorbed by the large lot that is Bartlett Farm, so it's now part of that. And, the planning board rightly said, well, we don't get involved in those kind of disputes, you have an easement to go through here, you have the right to do it, and this is your second means of egress. Although I'll tell you, you guys, that wasn't a good intersection you guys produced.
No, but it was no choice to have a second egress.
Well, no, what I'm saying is we're gonna probably turn it into a T, cause you've got a curve in there that's like a 25-foot radius curve.
Yeah.
And that's not gonna work. So we just said,
Two
hey, we're
wheels.
gonna make it a T, you know? We're not gonna have this curve, you know, basically,
Yeah.
otherwise we're gonna be in that, the lady's house, porch every single time. We'll put a stop sign there.
We'll figure it out.
So, that's where that stands. We also have, Leah has entered, the law court brief, regarding which one is this? This one is,
Du Bois?
oh, yeah.
Is that
It's
it?
just which one of the
It's
Du
which
Bois
one, I'm
sections.
trying to remember which, it's AP 50. Yeah, it's the one in which, oh, yeah, we're the appellant on that, we're the plaintiff.
Oh, this must be the 80K.
No, it's
No?
not the 80K, no, it's another, it's basically us getting aggressive on their claims that, oh, this is for your penalties. Yeah, this is for you guys going to jail.
I gotta go to jail. Yeah, baby, I need a vacation, take me away.
So that's the law court's hearing for that, at least, and Leah's getting more and more feisty every single time. She's clearly tired.
What's that consist of?
I believe it's the appeal of,
It was me, you, Tom,
Oh,
Roger.
the
Roger.
people
I
that
don't
were
think Jim- I
at
don't
the
think
actual
Jim-
meeting
yeah.
I don't
where
think
the
four of
decision
us.
was made, right.
And me,
Chip.
and me,
Wasn't Chip one of
Chip
them?
was one, I was one, Leo was one,
They
Yeah.
want, they
Yeah,
wanna
they
have us
got sued.
arrested and put in jail until we agree to give them
her attorney was one.
the permit.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Yeah, it was.
Well, there's also $3 million in fines they want on this too.
Wait, maybe?
We'll do a bake sale.
Apple Pay.
We'll just tell the,
Richard,
we'll just
check.
let everybody know that it's to bail out the planning board, and we'll be there for a while.
Yeah, right.
No checks,
No check.
no checks.
Now, anything else about their public hearings and,
I was gonna say, did we decide on a day for the public hearing for the street design?
I thought it was the 21st.
Did you have a motion to that effect?
We do
that?
not,
Because
we do not
did
have a motion to
Thank
that
you.
effect.
That's
Oh,
what I
sure.
was getting at.
Okay.
motion 21st,
Okay.
public hearing?
We have a motion for the public hearings to be held on the 21st of March.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Just to remind you, I mentioned earlier, I won't be in town that day.
Okay. Here
Okay,
we go.
Jimmy's gotta take the minutes. He's gotta watch the video.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
It is 4 with 1 abstention.
Who's abstaining?
Me.
Jamie won't be in town.
Jamie won't be in town.
Well, he can,
I can still
he can vote,
but-
he still
but I
can
didn't.
vote.
But I
But he
didn't,
didn't.
I chose to remain silent.
Anyway,
He's
So should we
testifying before
move to,
Congress.
end the meeting?
Yeah, that'd be
Sure,
cool.
second.
I move that we
Wait.
end the meeting.
I didn't hear what's happening in Du Bois.
He just told you, they're being